and welcome to episode 48 of the XboxEra podcast. I'm here with, as usual, Shpeshal Ed.
What's going on?
And a very special guest, Mr. Jeff Grubb, everybody.
Howdy, y'all. How's it going?
Very well. Thank you for joining us today.
No,
Thanks
I'm
so
happy
much
to
for
be
coming
here.
on again, buddy.
Of course, yeah, anytime.
Yeah, I missed the infamous romance, the bromance that started between you two on Boxing Day of 2020, because apparently Nick finds it bad that I went to celebrate Christmas. He was like, "You don't celebrate Boxing Day." I was like, "No, no one's like holding boxes up and worshipping them and talking about how great boxes are. That's not the point. It's Christmas time. You know, the wife will effectively murder me. I can't do it."
Jeff
but
had my back.
The bromance began, and he had your back, so it's all good.
I love you, Jeff.
It's
Love you too, bro.
It's quite interesting because we had no idea Jeff was free, and then Twitter user MDHX added Jeff Grubb in a tweet that he foolishly put, which means he's now on 60 podcasts this week.
Yeah,
no joke.
And now he's here, so we're very grateful to have him.
Jeff and I are forever bonded. We're forever bonded through Elden Ring, through getting screwed by Elden Ring.
Yeah, piece of shit game.
Yeah, never heard of it. It looks awful.
Oh,
some absolute douchebag leaked the trailer the other week, and it looks terrible.
Yeah. I got my revenge.
Yeah.
Now it's been an interesting week. There's been some crow, well served, and the first question I want to ask is this, gentlemen, how does it feel to be right?
Yeah.
Pretty nice.
That feels good. I mean, you know what? It feels right to be right. Like, this is just the way it should be. It's the way it goes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels pretty normal. Yeah. It's how it's just like any other day.
Just pondering around.
If you go back,
I
was watching it just before. We did an emergency podcast like 5 months ago when the acquisition was first announced, or the intent to acquire. Maybe go back and have a watch. We say a lot of things that are sort of being said right now.
Yeah, although it is interesting how many hot takes are still they clinch onto words and phrases and try and spin them into something that they're not meant to be.
Some words? They cling to some words?
2 days. Our forums were on fire for 2 days with the word some.
Jesus.
It's like, guys, it's just video games. Like,
I feel like some people in the industry are ruining their legacy by some of the things they're saying.
For goodness sake.
Seriously.
Dear.
Like, Jesus Christ.
So, I mean, let's get the largest elephant in the room out of the way. Microsoft had their roundtable. Lots and lots of interesting info. A couple of things to kind of kickstart this conversation off from me. One, I thought that this format, the way they presented it, the way they put it together, was the best distanced event that Microsoft have done throughout the whole COVID era that we are still just at the end of now, but living through. And two, for all of the annoyance in the other parts of the world for people that don't get to play Bethesda games in the future, there was a genuine, at least it came across as genuine to me, celebratory mood for Xbox and Bethesda. That looks like a partnership that's very real and very genuine amongst that team.
It is. Altman said as much in one of his final messages. Having said that, though, like I've seen a lot of talk, especially in the Discord, about how that was one of the best things Microsoft's done marketing-wise. I don't know. I'm not sure I agree with that. I still think it comes back to content. Like, put it this way. If that wasn't about Bethesda, so they used that exact format, but it wasn't about Bethesda and it was just about some other random topic, would people still think it was a great way to do it?
I mean, I think it matters, though, right? It matters that it's Bethesda. Yeah, you're right that you can't apply this format to everything. It's a couple things. I mean, Bethesda matters. It also matters that we haven't seen people sitting in a room together talking about games in a very long time. Like, it's just very nice to see that,
was
right?
There.
Yeah, I mean, Phil and Aaron flew to Maryland. They flew there to be there with these people. And of course, they're going to have their first, meeting right after that, like they said. But it's just you get a sense of importance because during the pandemic they're flying somewhere,
right.
and who knows, these are people that might have had their vaccine by now, so they're feeling comfortable to do that sort of thing. But regardless, it's still a harrowing thing right now to travel during the pandemic, and it makes it seem like this is a big deal to them, and they're gonna set it up proper and make it look good with like professional lighting on a real sound stage and decorate it and all this stuff. And it just was it felt like they took it seriously. And but I do think it was well paced. I think that the way that they went between the the roundtable interview to like talking to each of the studios in these pre-produced videos, it was well paced. They didn't stay on any one topic for too long. It also, I think the biggest thing for me is it seemed like they were listening to the community in a way that was like they understood what all the questions were. It wasn't just the exclusive ones. They heard like all of the concerns and like listened to like what we wanted to hear and said as much as they could without talking about unreleased games, which they were never going to do at this thing. So it was cool to feel that they had their finger on the pulse, because that's not always something Xbox is great at. I think
it's very true.
None of these companies are really perfect at it, but a lot of times it feels like Microsoft really misses the mark on that stuff, and this one they didn't. So I think that's what people are really vibing with here.
They read the room and they staged the response, because I think that was the first reaction, right? We got the press release out of nowhere on Tuesday because people didn't even think anything was going to happen until the roundtable, as per everyone's world famous summer game mess version 2. But they dropped the Tuesday blog post. It had that vague wording that everyone
people only saw one word.
Everyone didn't like this acquisition in the first place to latch onto with a vengeance and say, there's a chance, and it caused uproar for 48 hours. But then they obviously knew that this was coming and did that, I presume, for legal reasons.
Yes, with this. Oh yeah, they were there last week. That's when they were there. That's when they filmed this, and then they were editing and putting this all together. And then this was all well planned. Let me ask. Can we talk about the words that people are hanging up on? And let me just say, this is my question. Will you be surprised if Starfield is on PlayStation at this point? Because I would be surprised.
Very surprised.
Very surprised.
Yeah.
I would borderline almost guarantee it won't be.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. The way that he said, like, I was talking to some people, people that are on the publishing side or development side, and some of them were like, it still seemed pretty vague, but like the way he said it, I don't think it's quite. There is room, absolutely. He is not a lawyer. Phil Spencer does not speak in a way that is precise, and I think it's one of the reasons a lot of people like him. He sounds like he has not put these paragraphs together in his head beforehand. He is just he knows what he knows, and he's like, okay, well, how am I going to say this? And then he says it, and then that's what they put on the video, and it's very relatable, and I like that stuff. But then you get words like legacy, and you get words like stump, even when he's like writing it down, literally. Yeah, but and so people get really hung up on that stuff. But if you really look at the way he was speaking, you really look at what exactly he said in its entirety, it would be very shocking to me if Starfield was multi-platform in the way that we mean like PlayStation.
Yeah.
If I had to put a percentage on it with Starfield, as in, is it going to be exclusive? I'd be like 95% yes, it is.
Same.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, the way I took it, pure, like, if I was to translate it in clear speak, it is anything where the interest of the game demands as broad a population as possible is a maybe. Anything that is, and this is, and maybe you guys would disagree here, anything where we feel we could do the generous thing, and for people that have played 2 games in a trilogy and there's a third, let's say Wolfenstein 3, we might do that. But anything new IP, no way. And this is where I then wobble with that statement, because I still think that the selling power of Elder Scrolls 6 as an example would be better off fully exclusive to the Xbox platform in totality. And then I look back at that Wolfenstein 3 statement and I think, nah, okay, they have to. They can't wish-wash this. They have to be very, very cut and dry. But they can't yet because they can't talk about games that haven't been announced, right, legally.
The one I find interesting is Indiana Jones. That's the one I find interesting.
And that sounds like the kind of thing that he was talking about, not with necessarily with the word legacy, but with like
contractual.
He brought up contracts multiple times, and that one's I would bet that in the Indiana Jones contract with Disney says you got to sell as many copies as possible. We are interested in that. We don't give a shit about your service.
Yeah. And part of me thinks that is very, very likely to be the case. But then you look at the Disney Marvel Spider-Man deal, and you got to think, if I was Microsoft, I'd be like, they get one.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of getting the lawyers back into the room and whether or not Disney is going to have the appetite to want to hear them out and change it.
That's the thing. This was done before made the agreement. It was sold. Exactly.
That's right.
And during it seemed like, I'm sure the conversations have been happening for a long time. I bet the contracts were written up for a long enough time that they could have started, before Microsoft was involved at all. Mm-hmm. But a lot of those conversations, the final signatures happened during a point where Microsoft legally could not be talking to Bethesda and could not have a say in that at all. So Microsoft would have to come in fresh and start those conversations all over and say, what do you need to change this to be exclusive? And I mean, maybe Disney would be up for that, but I don't necessarily know that Microsoft would want to spend their time trying to make that go to reverse that decision into something that it's not.
Yeah,
I don't know. My gut instinct. My gut instinct when it was. Yeah. Sorry, my gut instinct when it was first announced was, this is going to be multi-plat for sure, because it would have been done before the acquisition and all that sort of stuff. But I don't know. I've heard both things from different sources. It's weird with Indiana Jones. That's why I was really interested to see how that one turns out more than any other.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think the conversation that might happen now at this point, if it's not one of, hey, this Indiana Jones deal that was signed at this point for these platforms. Yeah, we don't want to change the platforms or anything, but we would like to negotiate a day one release into Game Pass, as is our mantra for anything we make. That's the extra conversation I see Microsoft particularly bothering to have if that scenario plays out. Because it would be very strange to me for a Microsoft first-party team in, let's be honest, 2 years or longer from now, because that Indiana Jones tease was, hey, people that like Indiana Jones, we're making a game, come and work on it. It's a recruitment ad as well as an announce. It would be odd to me 2 years down the line for that game to not release day one into Game Pass. So there's probably got to be a conversation, if it's not happened already, to be had on that point. Surely.
Yeah. But I reckon watch this space on Indiana Jones. I reckon there's a chance it goes exclusive.
But
I reckon there's a chance.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I do think for the first time in a long time, I normally always look forward to E3. Have to admit, got my ticket for Summer Game Mess. Didn't enjoy it as much last year. It was.
I apologize for nothing.
But this year, I can't help but feel the problems around COVID, although they're not completely gone away, they're slackening somewhat. But there's so much that they have in their pockets now to see and to experience and to enjoy. It's always a great time of year. I'm glad it's not spread over 5 months this time, hopefully.
Well.
Well,
let's give a little preview of the next Summer Game Mess update.
Go on, drop something on us. Come on.
Yeah, it's just it's going to be vague. It's going to be vague for a while because it's still pretty far out. That's the point. Yeah. I will be adding something that says some of the companies that are going rogue from E3 are now slipping into July already. So we thought it was all going to happen in June. Some are already slipping into July. So. Okay. Yes. Hey, why wouldn't they? If they needed just a little bit more time, and they're not like operating under the ESA's mandates of a certain time structure. Jeff Keighley's going to say no, but I wanted it all to be 1 week or 1 month.
Yeah.
We don't give a shit, Jeff Keighley. What are you? we need more time.
Cram it, Jeff.
Yeah. Get out of here. Yeah.
Wait, which Jeff are you talking to?
Well, no one talks to me that
I
way.
I would never.
Okay, the bromance is coming back in strong,
Grubb.
guys.
Never.
Don't make me.
Basically, it's already extending. It's already kind of to a point where some companies who thought they were going to do it in June are now planning for July.
Wow. And speaking of E3, I suppose the other kind of I don't know if this was, you guys will have to refresh my memory and keep me honest here. This wasn't so much a update as such. This is what we understand to be the case, is that as Bethesda is operating as it's on its own independently but under the Microsoft umbrella now, there's still going to be two separate shows, right? So Microsoft isn't smashing the windows of Bethesda and stealing a bunch of trailers to go and show off. So for Xbox fans in particular, there's kind of two events,
two E3s
to look forward to, which is great.
Stick with it.
And I guess here's an open question for you guys. What are you expecting to see in terms of the games we know about and the games yet to be sort of showed off from both a Microsoft and a Bethesda sort of perspective? Because we've got, just to refresh your memories, we've got the re-reveal of Halo Infinite. We've got Perfect Dark. Are we going to see that? We've got Fable. Are we going to see that?
Starfield,
Wolfenstein 3, possibly.
Yep.
And
Indiana
there's
Jones.
Rumours of an unannounced global publishing game out there. What do you think we're going to see?
You want to go first,
go
Nick?
for it, Jeff.
Okay, yeah. So I would I think I'm going to hear more soon. So right now, a lot of this is still, I get to speculate like everyone else, which is nice.
Give us something juicy, Jeff. Come on.
Well, the juicy stuff on the podcast today, I'm pretty sure I'm getting close to certain about Starfield being the Bethesda one. So like we can start to get our hopes up for that, I think. But I think that one's pretty obvious. But I also think Microsoft needs that because I think the Xbox show itself is going to be it's probably going to be disappointing to a lot of people, I think, because there won't be a lot of like new mind-blowing announcements. They've sort of announced everything that they can at this point, for sure. There's a few things like, we know that Jason Ronald's been teasing something, but I think we all know what Jason Ronald's looking forward to the most, right? Like it's probably a Forza game, right? So what is Xbox going to have? They're probably going to talk a lot about Halo. They're probably going to have that like 1, 2 maybe unannounced games. And then if we're lucky, some updates on the stuff that they've already talked about, some stuff on Avowed, some stuff on Perfect Dark. But that's going to be like a few more teasers, nothing too substantial. We're still a ways out. That's the stuff they're going to have to really talk about in 2022. So I would expect a lot on Halo, a few updates here and there on some other stuff. And then let Bethesda take over and say, okay, now let's go to the Bethesda show and just be so grateful that we bought Bethesda. Because man, they have the game.
Well, I mean, and that is what's going to, I think, really make the difference for the Series X and S in 2021, right? With Halo Infinite.
If they have Starfield, right? That's the difference right there, I think. If it's Starfield and it follows the Fallout 4 release schedule, where they announce it and it's like, okay, and here's the release date. You could pre-order right now. You're going to be playing this in 5-6 months. To me, that's huge. That's kind of all I'm going to care about. I love Bethesda games, so
that's my preferred marketing route for any game release. Screw the elongated cycles that just try and drum it in, and then eventually it was revealed 4 years ago and you forgot what the hell it was. I love the short, sharp, boom, here's the game, here's a proper gameplay segment, no CGI. And it's coming out and you can pre-order it now, go have fun. Great. I hope that's the case. I'm intrigued to see it because if I'm honest, as much as, because Bethesda's the hot topic, I've gone with a Bethesda background today. RPGs in general, anything open world that requires more than 30-40 hours of my time, I start to crave that. And it's not a knock on the games, it's just my time allowance and personal preference to some degree. But I'm intrigued by Starfield. You're not supposed
to beat those games. Don't worry about just go in there and play it like a sandbox. Just mess around, explore a little bit, and then if you only play for 10 hours, I bet it's still a pretty fun 10 hours though.
Well, and because of, and I suppose this gives me a little, I'm completely going off your list, Nick. I'm just going with what feels natural, but don't worry, I'll loop back. This gives me a little segue, right? I've often considered, maybe I'll try this game and maybe I'll try that game. Well, now today we get the chance to do that if you don't own them already, because 20 games just dropped into Game Pass today en masse.
I don't know if all 20 dropped at the same, like some of them were already on there. I guess if they were on PC, I think almost all of them were new. Yeah. But on the console one, like New Vegas was on there.
Yeah.
But like stuff like Prey was new.
Yeah. And I think Prey, you know, you guys, if you played Prey?
I have. Yeah, a little bit. It didn't click with me the way it clicked with some others.
Same, yeah. I'm a bit of a wuss, and I saw some jump scary things where boxes turn into evil black creatures. You know,
that happens.
Yeah, I need to queue myself up for that one. But I've considered diving back into Prey. I know that Skyrim apparently has a 60 FPS mod. Fallout 4 is 60 FPS now. I can't remember which ones were on the FPS boost.
So there was 4 games that got FPS boosts, or 5. Dishonored Definitive Edition, Skyrim Special Edition, Fallout 4, Fallout 76, and Prey all got FPS boost.
Interesting. I wonder if more are gonna swiftly follow suit.
For sure. And I'm still waiting on that Doom Eternal Series X patch too.
Yeah, that's.
I bought the game just for it, and it still hasn't come yet. I haven't started it yet. I'm waiting.
Just waiting for the smart delivery update. Yep, there you go. Play what you want to play.
But do you mind if we go back to that E3 thing?
Yeah, go on, please.
Just in terms of, you were saying what we expect to see.
Course, like... I skipped you, didn't I? I got distracted. Please.
Yeah. I probably would echo most of what Jeff said. I have this funny feeling somewhere in there's going to be another Lucasfilm Disney thing, probably Star Wars. From one of them, from either Bethesda or Microsoft.
Really?
I reckon there's going to be something.
But which team? Well, I suppose ZeniMax are hiring for a big MMO style game.
I don't know. What is ZeniMax doing? Like, what are they up to? Like, I think some of their job listings would indicate that their next project's not an MMO or anything like that. A lot of their job listings read like a traditional game. And I'm just like, what are they up to?
Interesting.
I don't know. I think there might be another Lucasfilm or Disney thing somewhere in there if I had to guess.
I could see Marvel or Lucasfilm. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see.
Oh, God, Marvel doesn't want anything to do with Xbox, do they?
Maybe not.
Maybe. I don't know. Which superhero would you pick if you could, right? Iron Man, probably. But they already did that
Iron
with
Man
Anthem.
VR is on PlayStation.
Oh, well.
Yeah, but I don't know if the character would be... I guess you're right. That deal maybe would be complicated by that. They would find someone, though. Black Panther, probably. But probably Black Panther.
Yeah,
Black Panther would be a good one. Hulk. There's a history there with Hulk.
I suppose big green machine, right?
Yeah, it all depends on the type of game they want to make. Like, I could see a Black Widow game being a really good Tomb Raider reclone, kind of.
I don't know.
Yeah,
you look at how the actual Avengers game did. Like, I know it's had its recent updates, its Series X, its Series S updates, and they've for some reason increased the grind. I played a little bit of it. I played about maybe 4 or 5 hours of it, and I turned my brain off. It was okay. It was very well made, but it wasn't particularly engaging in any way. And the classic Avengers, a lot of them have moved on. COVID's hit the movie industry. I don't know. Is there any real interest? I'd rather they work on their own IPs, their own stuff, than hire stuff out. Yeah. Not to say that I'm not extremely excited by the idea of playing an Indiana Jones game.
Oh, yeah. I just think Star Wars has more affinity with Xbox than always has.
Yeah, they've done a bunch of deals.
That's true.
In the past.
So
that's true.
They probably lean, like if you're Microsoft, you're probably approaching Lucasfilm about Star Wars stuff more so than Marvel and their stuff.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. Yeah.
But
we'll see.
We'll find out, I guess, in a couple of months or so.
I bet it will be here before you know it. It's already yesterday it was March 2020 and it's been a year suddenly. The world has just blurred into one big soup. Some brief other notes that... go on.
I was going to say, I'll jump in with something, because since we were talking about Marvel, did either of you see that Disney Plus Falcon Xbox ad?
You beat me to my own segue, man. You beat me to my own segue.
Did any of you see it?
Yeah, I did see it. It was pretty cool.
I saw that it happened, but I didn't watch it.
It's actually I really liked it. I thought, like, given, because I assume there's some sort of contractual obligation between Microsoft and Disney Plus that they, push each other's product or whatever because of the perk, the Game Pass perk, whatever it is. But the ad is actually quite clever, I reckon. Maybe I'm just a dummy that's easily pleased, but I actually thought the ad was quite clever, where he's been blipped out for 5 years, and he's like, so what have I missed in the last 5 years? And the guy's like, look at all these Xbox games you've missed on Game Pass, and blah, 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 blah. It's actually quite cool.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, it's
I'm gonna mute it and watch it real quick. Hang on.
Put subtitles on YouTube, you'll be fine.
Yeah. It's a pretty. I actually quite liked it. I thought it was a good ad. I think it was a clever way of having to advertise both Xbox and Disney Plus. I thought it was quite smart, but maybe that's just me.
Yeah, it's there's a certain point. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but there's like brand where Twitter brands, hey, we're a brand. Look at us having fun with you, and I'm like,
I like it when it's Branger when they fight with each other. When like KFC Gaming is yelling at Burger King to stop being sexist idiots. Like that stuff's good.
That tweet, like, good lord, I get the intent, but read the room, but then they doubled down.
I kept saying to everyone, I'm like, read the whole thread, but they should have realized that people don't read threads. They just see
that was their right.
It was tweet.
Yes, and absolutely.
You can imagine how that meeting went, right, guys? I've got this really fun idea. We're going to do this, and it's going to drive everybody nuts because it's awful. But then we'll pivot it and be like really clever about it. And there's probably some male executive at Burger King that went, "That sounds smart."
Yeah,
he's probably like 60 plus. He's like, ha 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 ha, that's chucklesome on International Women's Day, and then it just snowballs out of control. Absolutely awful tweet from Burger King, but never mind. What other interesting things? And I guess I'm gonna pivot this on two levels. So Microsoft did a alpha update, insider update, and the Chromium Edge browser.
So happy about this.
Coming to Xbox. Now, I have not once used the browser on my Xbox because why on earth would you? You're special.
It's terrible,
Ed,
but I have.
Right? You're special, Ed. That's understandable. I've only ever clicked it like once and it's loaded up a page and I've been like, oh, press B in horror. But
you end up there on accident like, what am I here? How'd I get here? Get out of here.
But here's what's interesting is, and I'm going to position this back to some of the wording that was used by Phil when we were talking about exclusivity and where Bethesda games are going to come, because, and I'm paraphrasing here, but the words I think used were exclusives where Game Pass exists, right?
Which we've said.
Now, we all know that there's been rumours for a while of a streaming stick. There's the PC app, the xCloud app. I've got it on my PC at the moment. I've been testing it out. It's going to come to a browser at some point because that's how they're getting around Apple's App Store policies. Mm-hmm. So, do you think, will Sony, if they I don't know if they have a browser on the PS5, you can keep me honest here.
Not a publicly available one. It's like the Switch.
Oh, okay.
It's there in the back end, and they use it. You know how when you use certain apps on iOS, you'll click on a link within the app, the native app, but then it opens up this weird pseudo.
It will use
Safari
the engine of the browser to
thing.
run a thing, but it's not something you can go in and play.
That's what the PS5 and the Switch have.
So, okay, so that question then, do you think there is a world where PlayStation would allow their browser, if they put a native browser on PlayStation 5, that they would allow it to connect to xCloud? Because if the browser's there, it should just be able to do it. Do you think they'll try and put steps in to prevent that, or will they just let sleeping dogs lie in that regard?
I mean, would they? Because the thing is, like, they would have to make sure that the controller hooked into the browser properly, so that it's recognized as a gaming controller. And maybe they just mess that up and be like, oh, well, we'll get around to fixing it someday. All they do is just disable clicking in the stick or something a little bit, and that doesn't quite work when you're in games. Oh well, most games probably will be feel pretty crappy if you're playing it that way.
Don't forget though, Microsoft already announced official DualShock support though for xCloud.
Right. No, yeah, absolutely. But like the browser, if there's a browser on PS5, it would have to have some. And this is assuming like the browser would be not compatible, but like would be able to render efficiently enough. Most browsers you think would, but like, you know, the reason Edge works is because it's Chromium. It's based on the thing that they're going to build it for Chromium, and then a lot of browsers are Chromium. A lot of stuff on like almost all the browsers on Android are Chromium. I guess the good sign there would be that the browsers on iOS are not Chromium, and if they're just going to work on that, they probably will be able to work on something that's like on the PS5. I still think my guess would be, first of all, it's unlikely that PlayStation's going to surface that browser at all, which would be it would be disappointing because a lot of people do use the browser on the consoles for various reasons. I know I don't either, but a lot of people do. They find reason. I guess most they're using it to look at Pornhub or whatever, of course, right?
No, that is not why I use it.
I think we found him. We found him. Everybody.
I do not use it to watch 4K porn on my big screen. Okay, that's not why I do it.
But if they do make it public and make it available, I still think that they would be like, oh, no, we're just not going to let you do that, and we're going to just disable it.
Yeah, just disable the path of translation for the pad controls to go through the browser.
Exactly. Yeah, we got to protect our gamers. Whatever Jim Ryan will come up with.
An agreement to allow Game Pass and xCloud on PlayStation,
right?
Which has also been a topic of discussion.
I doubt it. I don't see, because Game Pass isn't just Microsoft first party. There is a lot of third party games, and you'd be cutting.
Yeah, but what if it was just Microsoft first party though? What if they made that version?
That's right.
What would be their excuse? Because they let EA play on there.
That's right. There's 2 Game Passes right now. There's Game Pass for console and there's Game Pass for PC that both have different games. Who's to say there won't be a Game Pass for PlayStation and a Game Pass for Switch?
All right.
That have individual games for them. So. Yeah, never say never. Like, I mean, Phil said something yesterday that was quite clearly an open invitation to Jim Ryan, saying, "Hey, get Game Pass on PS5, man. You can have all these games."
Well, you say
it was
that
clearly an open invitation.
There would be a very big difference, right? Because here's an honest question: do I see a world where 343 Coalition, any first party, not Bethesda, Microsoft studio, is going to get a bunch of PS5 dev kits to make a native version of their games and increase that? Because that's the point of a first party, is to exude the qualities of your platform. So if you're talking about xCloud on PlayStation, which I just never see happening unless, 10 years down the line, everything's gone very badly wrong for Sony. You're talking about every studio then having to make a native version, because your average hardcore console gamer isn't going to want to be content with a streamed version of a game where the inputs just detect a DualShock or a DualSense and put some squares and other shapes up on the screen. You're going to want a native version. I just don't see that world existing, personally.
Okay, neither do I. Counterpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Game Pass for PlayStation app exists, let's just say.
Yeah.
They make the app. And within the app is the curated list of Game Pass for PlayStation games.
Mm-hmm.
Those games, so when you look at the list of games, it might be all of Microsoft's exclusives, all of them, Halo, Gears, Forza, the whole lot, all of them. But when you select them, you then get 2 options underneath, or 1 option depending on the game. So if it's Halo, the only option underneath might be play, and it starts streaming it through the inbuilt browser. But when you see Fallout 4, it says play, install, because Fallout 4 is on PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5. When you see Deathloop, install, play. Play goes to the browser, installs Deathloop because it was on PlayStation 5.
Sure.
So what if...
But fast forward 5
I'm just
years.
saying, anything is possible. Like
it's all possible. I just don't see a world in 5 years' time when everything, all the Perfect Darks are out, the Avoweds are out, all of that jazz, that you'll get natively developed games from Microsoft first parties for that platform. It would all be streaming only if it were to ever happen, which I doubt.
Most likely it would be. That's why I said you'd have the option depending on the game, because a lot of those Game Pass games have native PlayStation versions. So some of them will be, maybe not new ones, but
but if Jim Ryan, if Phil Spencer and Jim Ryan sit down and they have a conversation, what would it take for you to allow us to have Game Pass Game Pass on PlayStation? And Jim Ryan comes back and says, "Okay, you can have this. You can have the subscription service. It's got to be pretty close to EA Play, though. It's just your games, and they have to be able to buy those games on the store separately if they want to, and you have to sell them for $70. And if those were the conditions, I think Phil would go for that. I think they'd be like, we'll figure it out. Okay, yes, we'll develop those. Yeah, if that's what it takes to get Game Pass on there, absolutely. Because if that's the end goal, and like once Game Pass is on there, most people would just subscribe to Game Pass instead of spending $70 on those games. And that's what they want. And then if you subscribe to Game Pass on PlayStation, when you get the Xbox or the PC version, which is included with your subscription at $10 a month, not Xbox Live, but with the $10 a month version, once you go to play on your PC, you already have your subscription from PlayStation. Just come over here and keep playing your games on there. And now we have all these third-party games as well as an option for you. Once you get on this platform, we understand you play on PlayStation. We understand, but in case you do come into these other platforms, we're waiting for you. You already have your subscription. I think Phil would make that deal. Yeah. But this is a conversation that's probably years away still.
So super hypothetical. Any fanboys getting some Jimmy's Russell, just call your Jets. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think Jim Ryan and Phil Spencer are probably not going to have that conversation ever, but if they do, it's probably still years away.
Oh, look, and there is one other thing to consider in all of this. There is another spanner that can be thrown into the works. It could potentially hit a point where maybe Jim doesn't have a choice. And you might say, why would that be? PlayStation is so damn dominant. What if Microsoft goes and buys a couple more publishers? Big ones.
Yeah.
What if?
Yeah.
And they don't have a choice because it's now all owned by friggin' Xbox. And then it's like, well, now we're going to have to, because if we don't, we can't, Sony can't live off their first party the way Nintendo can. Nintendo have demonstrated for the better part of 30 years that they can have no third-party support and still kick everyone's ass. Yeah. So Nintendo don't care. Sony, I mean, the PlayStation 2, best-selling console of all time. Most of the games people remember from PlayStation 2 are third-party money hats. Same with PlayStation 1. Sony can't live and thrive off their first party like Nintendo can. So if Microsoft goes and buys
they're loss leaders too. Like those games, they're very expensive to make. They sell pretty well, but they don't sell well enough to generate the kind of profit you need to keep the entire business model.
They don't sell
Nintendo
Sony well.
Yeah.
Because no way. Yeah.
Nintendo's games also. This is what people forget. And this is why Nintendo makes a ridiculous amount of money. Nintendo's games don't cost that much to make in comparison to Microsoft's and Sony's.
And for some reason, they never drop in bloody price. It's a nightmare. I own a Switch. I can't buy anything. It's too expensive.
Hey, you know what the reason is?
They're evergreen.
We don't care. Buy our game. Or don't buy our game.
I know.
Go ahead. We don't care.
That's right.
Yeah. Who are you? Buy our game.
Look at the Wii U.
We spent 5 years making this Animal Crossing game.
Yeah.
We don't care. It looks pretty much the same as it always has.
That is literally the argument I have in my house. My wife, my son had a Switch. We bought it for him. He had Mario Kart. I got Zelda. Got annoyed with the weapon breaking mechanic. Come at me. I don't care. And
you're wrong.
Yeah, don't care. I'm right. I've got a good friend of mine who, if he watches this, he'd be like, "You are wrong," and he'd probably text me right now if he was watching it. But she saw the advert for Animal Crossing, and I was like, she doesn't play games, right? She doesn't get it. She thinks this hobby is weird. She thinks it takes up too much of my time. If you can hear me, I love you. But I bought her Animal Crossing just on a whim, and man, she just disappeared into that game for months. It was great. I got to play so much. But now my son is like, I want an Animal Crossing. And I'm like, oh yeah, well, Nintendo's weird and you can't have more than one island and and you can't
Yeah, very, very weird how they get you to buy multiple copies of their games, huh? It's a weird quirk about Nintendo, huh?
Drives me nuts.
But,
wish I could figure that one out.
I mean, look how stubborn Nintendo are though. The Wii U was basically Dreamcast levels of failure. And yet they still refuse to drop the price on that console, no matter what. The game prices didn't drop on it. And they still managed to have games with attach rates that were like 80% and 70%, even on the Wii U. Like,
yeah, I mean, maybe this is a factor of a company that's been around for more than 100 years, right?
Yeah,
like
right.
they're like, we are thinking in terms of decades and centuries, and not the next quarter. And sure, we're a publicly traded company, but we've been around for longer than all of our shareholders have been alive. So we're gonna act like we know better because we do. And yes, the Wii U is a failure. But we know that if we drop the price now, that's going to become ingrained in our customers' minds that if they just wait, the stuff will drop in price. And for the next console, we'll have to kind of treat it. We'll have to deal with that on the next console. So no, we're just going to see it through keep our philosophy. It's not a strategy. It is not. It's not some weird idea.
It's
it is
who they
a
are.
philosophy. Yeah. It is core to who the way the company works. And
kudos to them.
It's pain, yeah, Sony's going to try to do something similar this generation. I think they're going to try to keep their games more expensive, but then they're going to be like, well, $70 to $60, we'll just drop it $10, and then people will be like, oh yeah, they are going to drop the price if we just wait. So let's just wait. And and then they're going to end up being in the same situation because it's just not a philosophy for Sony in the way it is for Nintendo.
And it's not even about the philosophy either. Sony's games, don't worry about what Metacritic says, right? Just don't let Metacritic tell you what's good and what's not good. Sony's games aren't as good as Nintendo's. That's the other thing you have to remember. People will pay the money for Nintendos because they are good and they buy them.
Right.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said. All I could hear was the 1,000 keyboards suddenly being typed furiously on.
No,
they're all saying he's right. Nick is right. Wow, thank you for saying.
They're just not like.
You don't even have to say that because it's so obvious.
Well,
my son just keeps playing Mario Odyssey. He won't stop. That's all he plays.
Here's my take, right? I agree with you. I think you're right. Nintendo. When I talk about Nintendo titles being evergreen, I don't just mean in terms of price. I just mean they just have I guess that Nintendo seal of approval, right? They're just always such a good design, philosophy, fun,
polish.
They are quintessential about what a game can be, and people look towards Sony for. Let's be honest, I'm trying to be kind here. Very narrative, very linearly driven games.
Long grass, slow walk and talk.
I have a lot of time for games that want to tell a good story. Personally, I like games that use the medium to tell a story and not just tell me a movie because it's a game and the visuals are great. The best story I've played in video games this year, like the last 3 months, was Little Nightmares 2. Have you played it, Jeff?
No, I think I should because I hear nothing but good things. People seem to really like it.
You can do it in 5 hours, but there's a bit. I'm not going to
just did really well in the MPDs too. Cracked the top 10.
Yes,
it's honestly
numbers. Yeah, they've sold 1 million copies worldwide. So
phenomenal,
doing very well.
But there's a bit in that game, and I'm not going to spoil it for those that haven't played it, where it uses the mechanics very similar in a way that A Tale of Two Sons, brothers, where you're playing, and this is old enough I don't care about spoiling it, where suddenly the left stick and the right stick work together and you learn that lesson, and it's done through the medium of what a game can be and not just a linear story. And the problem I think with Sony games is they're very one and I'm done. I mean, and there will be fans out there who say, I've played it 1,000 times. Cool. Did you experience the story in a different way? Like I can't, once you've done the collectibles, you're out.
Well, that speaks to exactly what Nick was saying too, right? Like, so this is why Sony needs third parties because so they get you in the door. They get some people in the door with these big, bombastic, blockbuster, single-player narrative games, and then those people play that game. Games that take, that took the developers 6 years, and they had mental breakdowns to create, and there was all kinds of toxic work environments. That, they probably shaved years off their lives making this game, and then someone finishes it in a weekend, right? It's like. Really, that gives me existential dread thinking about that. So I can imagine being involved in making this. But there's a reason they keep doing it. It's first of all, Sony got really good at doing it. So it's like, well, we should probably just keep doing it because we're better than anyone else at this kind of game. But then it's also like, this gets people in the door, and then they start spending money on Fortnite and all this other stuff. That is where we actually make quite a bit of our money now from services.
Absolutely.
And that's actually where the profits happen. So if Microsoft's strategy is to sort of do a I drank your milkshake scenario from There Will Be Blood and sop up all the other profit potential for Sony and leave them with just their first party, then Sony really wouldn't have a choice.
That's right.
We'll have to see if Microsoft does that. I am of the opinion that Microsoft doesn't just intend to spend more money on acquisitions. I think they are in a situation where fiscally need to, because having money in the bank right now is a really bad thing. You don't want money in the bank with inflation, on the line,
absolutely.
and with interest rates so low, that money's just going to sit there and it's going to start losing value, and you don't want that. So what's a good way? Just go invest that in some other businesses, and games is a really good way to do that. Games turn a profit pretty much if you can spot a good company, go out there and buy it, and then that's your money working for you. But still, man, imagining them like buying up like we talked about on our podcast. Just someone brought up like Square Enix. Like that seems so far fetched. But
well, this again,
yeah,
this is a very interesting point, because I brought this up the other day on Game On Daily. This is the other area that you see the arguments in forums and online on Twitter or whatever about, and it always makes me laugh. Oh, what is Sony going to do to counter? Like, they don't think, we should definitely go out and buy a company to counter this move. That's not how businesses operate. But more than that is Microsoft, Xbox was the garage band until, I don't know, 2017, right, when Phil jumped up in job title and became a core pillar, like up there with Office and Azure and Windows. And now we have an Xbox, as we've seen, $7.5 billion, that is playing with Microsoft's full deck of cards, with the business behind it as a core pillar of their money making, their pursuit of technology. How can we blend Azure into this? That's Satya's big deal. That's why Game Pass and xCloud exist. Sony is not a $1 trillion company. They are very, very good at making games, but they don't just have $8 billion lying around to just throw a company. It's not the same. Yeah, they could buy a developer, $100 million. They've done that, but it's a very different ball game when we look at what Microsoft could do. And I'm not saying there are a lot of people out there with fears of consolidation in the industry, and all of that jazz. And we've got an interesting piece coming out. We interviewed a bunch of developers that we've gotten on with and got to know over the last year, and just got some interesting takes from, hey, I'm a developer. What do I think about what's happening in my industry? It's a really good read. We're just kind of wrapping up the last few bits on it. But this is a very different world. And, I don't think Microsoft are done. I think they've been very public about saying that, because, hey, if you want to be the Netflix of video games, you've got to do what Netflix did and make the deals, get in there first, be the one that's on everybody's homes before the rest of the industry looks at you and goes, shit, and it tries to play catch up, or you won't keep up. So yeah, it's
yeah. So they're like, Microsoft lucked out a little bit when Google was like, oh wait, we actually think this is a bad idea.
Yes.
We suck at this. We should stop all of this. And so so that's one company that could compete down.
That actually helps Sony too. That helps Sony, because it's one less big player to potentially muscle them out by buying a publisher
and pushing prices up on all, what was the company that Nintendo works with all the time? That's just, I'm not gonna be able to remember the developer, but it's a developer that Next Level Games.
Next Level Games.
They work with Nintendo nonstop, and they're like, well, we're gonna sell ourselves. So hey, Nintendo, do you want to buy? And Nintendo's like, yes, because developers are like, in terms of their valuation right now, probably the highest they're ever going to be, at least in the way that games are made right now, because content is worth so much, and COVID made games so popular that they were making a lot of money, and Luigi's Mansion 3 did really well, so they're like, okay, we're going to sell now. The cost to buy a developer is continuing to go up, and it's because companies like Microsoft are out there saying, hey, we are looking for this stuff. When Tencent starts realizing that it wants to play in the Netflix of games fight, and when Amazon realizes that's what it's going to have to do, Sony will not be able to compete with that. So Sony's going to have to make some deals with those big companies, or try to become more Nintendo-like in terms of looking at the blue ocean strategies, and that's just so difficult. So many companies really struggle. Like,
they'll have to diversify.
Nintendo's done it repeatedly, but again, I think it's a philosophy thing. It's a core being thing, and trying to say, hey, we're gonna have to spread out, make family games that like blow people away, like Animal Crossing. It's not something you just say. It's something that it takes years and years to get good at, and Sony knows that. Sony knows that better than most, because it took years and years and years to get good at what they do.
Tail end of PS3 when that finally that happened and they got to that level.
But well, like, you know, they make Uncharted, and that game's like really solid and blew people away at the time. But really, it was like, you know, it's like an 8. So if a company were to try to like say, okay, we're going to make a Naughty Dog style game today, their first game's probably going to be like an 8 today, and that's like a failure at this point, because we know what a Naughty Dog can do. But they've already got all that institutional knowledge, and they know what it takes to gain that institutional knowledge. And so it's like a really, it's a tall task, and they're afraid to try it, and I don't blame them because it's a tough business.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, don't forget, Naughty Dog made Jak 2 and 3 not long before Uncharted.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes there's not a big gap between a horrible game and then the smash hit. Like, Double Helix is a great example. Have a look at Double Helix. If you look at their list of games, they just went from meh, Strider Killer Instinct.
Yeah.
And just as they were about to, like, explode, Amazon's like, come here and do nothing for us for a while. And
Such a shame.
And now...
Wait,
oh, God.
we see this happen with like EA. You know, they closed down some studios that were working on some Star Wars games because
Was that 13?
Okay, not 1313. It was the I can't. I'm not. It's a code name now, and it's the one they were making with Amy Hennig, who worked on Uncharted, and they were going to make an Uncharted style game, and it's like, okay, I think this might be really hard, and like based on what like the people we have and the people that are available to hire, like we can make a pretty good one of these, but a pretty good one of these right now is going to come out and be a 75 on Metacritic. And that is not acceptable for the amount of money we need to put in. Like, yeah, sure, the sequel to this will be pretty good, but we don't know if this first one's going to be good enough to justify a sequel in terms of how well it sells. And so we're just going to pull the plug and go make Squadrons instead. Like, we see companies doing this over and over again, and so Sony might be in between like a rock and a hard place for sure.
Yeah, and
Respawn will end up being the smartest buy EA ever made.
Respawn are a fantastic.
Yes. You bought a company that knows how to prototype and is like has a philosophy that is just like, oh, okay, they know they want to make games, they want to make all kinds of games, and we're just going to let them go to town. Yeah, absolutely. Respawn was an incredible buy for EA.
Yep. Absolutely. So, yeah, I think we've dug into most of the meat and potatoes, and probably some extra bits there for those that really like us to diverge. Other things, and I know that we've got a bunch of community questions coming up that will probably ask us to repeat ourselves a little bit here and there, but I think I saw some interesting ones. So, other interesting news that literally dropped maybe an hour or two before we sat down to record was the Game Pass Twitter account, and this is interesting. The Game Pass Twitter account with their Melissa McGamepass brand, the brand strikes again, dropped a little hint, and I don't know if you still have it on your screen, Nick.
Yes, I do.
Oh, jolly good. I'll let you read that out then.
Give us an exclusive, Jeff, and tell us that you know about this. Okay, so
no, I missed this because I was in a parent-teacher conference, so this must have happened when that was happening. So
okay,
and that was in our podcast. This is the first I'm hearing about it. Let me know what.
Let's see what your initial reaction is to what game.
Yeah. So you tell us what you think of this. So they did the whole joke about Melissa McGamepass sending an email. So she says, "Hey team, so much news today. Hope you don't mind if I add some more, although it's completely unrelated to other announcements. That new game has been confirmed and is officially coming to the service. As always, keep this confidential. Before I go, I did have something I wanted to ask. Has anyone else noticed a mysterious signal appearing in the distance lately? Or am I the anomaly in this situation? Weird question, I know. Melissa. So what game do you think that email is referring to?
I'm terrible at this sort of thing, so I'm like trying to draw like signal
we'll
anomaly.
Give you a clue if you like.
Yeah.
Hold on. I'll read it out. Hold on. Let me read it out. Where is it? Okay. I'll read out. I think they've got it right. Now, there's a new game coming out, and the story behind this game is humanity's efforts to colonize the alien planet Enoch went astray as the expedition team encountered a massive energy storm known as the Anomaly during their search for a mysterious signal. Do you know what game that's from?
No.
Outriders.
Huh.
Now that's interesting because that's a very new game. It's just had a demo and it's not out yet, and it's Square Enix.
It's also, and it's a game.
And
that
remember,
was probably
that email says that new game has been confirmed and is officially coming to the service.
Yeah, right. Okay, so here's my guess. Here's what it is. Balan Wonderworld. They got it, boys. They got it. They got it.
Oh, man.
Okay, no, they're probably right, because it makes sense, right? Because Outriders seems like a game that needs Game Pass, right?
Yes,
that thing needs Game Pass. It's like Square Enix, like, oh boy, that demo went okay. No, okay, it's not going so good. Microsoft, please. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's exactly how it turns out.
Now,
on the surface, that's definitely how it looks. It looks like it's Outriders.
And when they do these emails, they don't try to be too coy. They make it pretty obvious if you know what they're talking about. So those are the words, and that stuff is right for Outriders in terms of its story. It's Outriders.
Now, this is the interesting part, right? If I was a person that liked Outriders, Hexa, and had put money down on it, and I was on Xbox and it's coming to Game Pass, are they going to announce this before the retail release? Because I would expect
they'd have to, surely.
I would expect to be very cross if I had to drop real money when I could just play it day one FOC. So,
when does it come out? When does Outriders come out?
Very soon, I think. April?
It's like later this month or early next month, right?
I think it's early April.
Let me check.
But
April sounds right, because Balan Wonderworld from Square Enix is later this month, so Outriders is probably April.
Outriders.
Balan Wonderworld. I got the tattoo and everything.
Fool's Day.
Yeah,
April Fool's Day.
Okay, yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Maybe that's the joke. It's on Game Pass. April's Fool. No, I don't know. That probably wouldn't go down well. But yeah,
so it's only a couple of weeks away, 2 or 3 weeks away.
Interesting. We'll see what happens next week on that front.
And it's April, so that would be the April game.
Yeah, I guess so. Interesting.
Yeah. Very.
What else? We know we've done the fantastic FPS stuff. Here's an interesting topic, and we're gonna try and do this delicately.
Didn't we talk about this at the start, or did we just sort of very briefly?
We touched on it, but let's dive in a little bit. If you want, we can avoid it if you'd like. I don't mind.
Hey, if it's not going to screw up your timestamps, go for it.
I don't know. Timestamps, am I meant to be keeping those? Hot takes. Let's talk about some hot takes. The media in general, and Jeff, I guess you're in the media, so you might have a unique perspective on this, right? There's been some hot takes out there. Ever since, the Bethesda was announced, there's been a lot of speculation back and forth. We covered this in some detail earlier. But between that, the word some, and yesterday, the roundtable, there were even more insane hot takes. And then even some after the roundtable, and including one I read that was, I think everybody read and was just like, what? And the person, I'm not going to name them, but they got ratioed to hell, suggesting that games that are in active development have been announced, have passionate dev teams working on them, be cancelled in order to produce games that they like. And this was from a fairly well-known media pundit. Prominent, yeah, especially in the Xbox world. What the hell kind of hot take is that? Why would you suggest just cancelling? What do you think is going to happen?
What?
So here, let me tell you something about people in the media. We're all dumbasses. We're all clowns.
That's
we don't know what we're
am I.
talking about. Yeah. I don't know. Am I joking there? I don't think I'm even joking. A lot of times, a lot of people just spout out stuff like you said. They're just like, they want the game that they like, so they say,
it's human,
we'll make that come out faster. And it's like, you really didn't think about it much more than that, did you? And especially what's going on Twitter, a lot of times, absolutely not. Did they think about that more? Half the stuff I put out there are jokes. I don't think this hot take necessarily was a joke. But it clearly wasn't well thought out. It wasn't like from a place of like, oh, I'm going to publish this on my website and actually stick my byline on it or anything like that, because you'd sat down and thought about it for a second. The idea of like canceling, taking established developers working on the thing that they chose to work on, something that they have developed themselves. And I mean, not just like, oh, we are a developer developing this game. Like, they have come up with these ideas, built these worlds
passion
themselves.
Project.
Yeah, passion projects, and then like the long work it took to like get something else off the ground. I'm just gonna name one. Avowed, like that doesn't just happen. That's not something like, oh, we're doing this on a whim. That is years of work already.
Pre-production.
People putting their lives into it. Yeah, pre-production, getting everything in line in terms of like actual production, of making sure like we have pipelines available to create the art, create the characters, create the systems, create the writing, making sure all these people were gonna just throw all that out to go finish a game that is going to have its own development team, and that development team's going to want to do that work themselves.
Yeah.
Like, no. And like the whole point of Game Pass, the whole point of making all these acquisitions so that you have however 25, 26 teams, whatever it is to have lots of games,
variety,
and not just like the one big tent pole. Like that one big tent pole is gonna come. It's gonna come. It's still gonna take years, whether or not you cancel these other games or not. Really, I mean, it's like at a certain point, the more people you put behind a project's not gonna make it go that much faster.
Especially if it's only 12. Grounded is like 12 or 14 people. How much do you think those 12 people are going to speed up Elder Scrolls, man? Like,
right? Yeah. It's like you just I get it. You don't care about the Grounded, but like, I let that team experiment and try something else, because that stuff's actually going to pay dividends down the line. Kicking that game away from them and say, go get to work on the project that we actually like, would just be devastating.
It made me want to quit my job.
Cruel.
But it would have been
you don't value anything I've done.
Like, it would have been part of the mandate. When Obsidian was acquired, part of that agreement would have been, you know what? We're not old Microsoft. We're going to let you do whatever you want to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Imagine if Microsoft turns around now and goes, yeah, Grounded's not selling like Halo CE, so we're just going to can it so that you 12 can help make Elder Scrolls 6.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And Microsoft doesn't want to repeat Lionhead. It doesn't want to repeat all these things that it screwed up in the past. Like try to think about like how we're looking back on this in 5, 6, 10 years. If most of these studios have like collapsed, have a bunch of canceled projects, stuff that didn't go anywhere, it's gonna be like devastating to the point where like video games are gonna feel kind of wrong, like bad.
Yep.
Like they tried something new and put a lot of money behind it, and then gave up. That stinks. That like kind of actually disrupted a lot of game development, and it just kind of makes this whole business feel a little bit rotten. They can't do that. They can't put this in. They can't make this model go that wrong. And part of that is letting these companies that you've acquired to make content for Game Pass have their own autonomy. Let them be who they are. And we've seen that that's the model that works. EA is going in that direction.
Yep.
EA has said, "Oh, that
realized.
works. Respawn works. We just want more respawns." Like, yeah, no shit, you want more respawns. Of course, that's what you want. It's just a bad take.
Yeah,
bad take.
But it's interesting.
Oh, and they doubled down. They doubled down on
I
their podcast. I listened to it.
Course.
Fully doubled down. Like,
madness. But here's the thing.
And that wasn't the only one. There was others.
Yeah,
there was plenty of others. I'm trying to remember them.
There's
all.
a ton of them, but
many.
man, we could go down that rabbit hole all day. But here's the thing. I think the salient point, right, is this came after yesterday, when, in my opinion, and we released a video today on the XboxEra YouTube channel, as well as an article that One Bad Mother put together, who was, I think, on a podcast with you, Jeff, a day or two ago on the Brat podcast.
Yeah, as some bad mother.
Was he some bad? He's one. He's just one.
B-rap.
Yeah. He might have changed it for fun.
For that show he did, yeah.
But he had some really interesting points, right? The overall theme that I got from yesterday was, they pulled in and they gave that message for, you got to remember that there's a whole 8 studios worth of employees that weren't in that room, that aren't sitting in the conversations with Phil and Todd Howard and all of those people, that wanted to hear these messages, and we're not going to go anywhere near how you run as a culture, as a team. And there's like loads of interesting, phrases used. Like, I think Phil said at one point, we don't need 15 games that are trying to do the same thing. We wouldn't try 30 different things across 15 games. And me as a gamer that loves to be shown different experiences that I might not know I like, and that's what's great about Game Pass, I'm like, yep, that's exactly what I want and need. And he talks as well about, the biggest challenge for developers right now is not tools or money. It's the boardroom, and I guess money is a part of that, but the boardroom is actually the people that decide on the pitch and whether you get to go and make what you think could succeed. And the fact that Microsoft, to a degree, I'm sure there's going to be pitch meetings and there's going to be, hey, we put a prototype together, what do you think? The fact that Microsoft is hopefully going to let those teams do what they do best, which is create worlds for us to go and shoot stuff or whatever in, it excites me. I think that's the way games should be made, is creator-led, right?
It wasn't a coincidence that roundtable also felt like a bit of a memorial for Robert Altman. It was like saying, hey, Robert Altman made this company. A lot of people really respected the way he ran it. Here's a bunch of stories about times he let us build games the way we needed to get the best games. That's what we're doing here. That's the whole point. That's why we came to Microsoft, because like they understood what Robert Altman was trying to do, and they're saying that they want us to keep doing that. Phil Spencer's looking at Robert Altman trying to maintain that legacy and bring it to Microsoft. That's a probably pretty good thing for people who make games, a pretty good thing for people who play games. And so I think that was a key to that messaging yesterday. You're like the two of the developers didn't have any games to show and didn't really talk much. So they just like, hey, here's a picture of like the 15 people up in Halifax, Canada at Alpha Dog Studios, all wearing their hockey jerseys. Here they are. Look at them. They are people, and they're making games. And we want to show them that we know that they're people, and that we're going to think of that way. It was like very important, very much part of the messaging, as much for the developers as it was for us. I agree with that.
Yeah, I think Phil ended it. I think the culmination of it all was, I think he's quoted as saying it's something Robert and I talked a lot about leading up to the acquisition of how do we create a world-class creative organization together, and Phil said this, a kind of in his memory, I want to deliver on that. And I think that's a real reassuring message to the Bethesda team that we're not gonna fuck your house up, and B, for me as a fan of video games, great. Let these teams go and do what they do, and let's try all these different worlds out and see what people come up with over the years. It's good stuff.
But I mean, Microsoft was the only option for them. Yeah, I mean, they've had such a close relationship for the longest time. Like, I mean, again, if you take everyone at their word, which you kind of have to, Todd Howard was like, when Fallout 76 happened, first person he called was Phil. Was like, man, how do I fix this?
It's really broken, dude. How do I fix it?
Phil was I messed up so called. Bad, man. I'm really messed up. You got to get me out of here, man.
Come on, you guys fix Master Chief Collection. How do we do this? Come on.
Oh God. Anyway, I think we've covered the broad spectrum of most of the the hot topics this week. As always, we have community questions. I've just realised, what we forgot to do, Ed? We forgot to update
talk about Forza Horizon 4?
Yes, we forgot to talk about Forza Horizon 4, but I could probably end that
only because it lends to Game Pass as well, though.
Yeah, go on then. Go on, quick.
I'm just saying, it was revealed, or they announced that Forza Horizon 4, as of November last year, reached 24 million players.
Well, what's amusing about that is it was announced 4 months ago and no one reported on it. And Sukiya said, no one reported on this, and then he posted a news story, so that's probably why it's fresh in your memory. But and they released on Steam this week.
Yes, and that might have had something to do with it. Yeah, and this is what I mean. Like, when you've got 20 million or so Game Pass subscribers, it makes it easy to say to developers, hey man, there's 20 million people here that are paying for this service. They're going to try stuff out. Get your game on there.
Yeah, I mean, it's
try it out.
Similar scenario.
And be a little less afraid to try something different. Like, go for it, because we want people broadening their tastes, because that actually benefits people, benefits the service in the long run. So
and here's some cash too. Here's some cash as well up front.
Yeah, here's some money. Yeah. Treat yourself to something nice. Yeah, go make a game.
Well, look at I chatted to the developers of Killer Queen Black. A couple of weeks back now, and they launched onto Game Pass. They released on Switch. I don't know if you've played it, Jeff. I don't know if you've played it either, Nick. To be honest with you,
I've intended to play it, and I had we were trying to set up a game night for it, and then I got busy.
100% see through a game night for it. It is once you get the grips of it and the snail and everything, it's a really ace game. But they were pretty open about the fact that one of the most pleasing moments was it's live and nothing's fallen over, and we've got an audience of 80 million potentially to just jump on and play our tiny little game. And if you can get past, a lot of gamers can't get past pixel art graphics. There's a certain audience out there that just, it's retro, I hate it. It's not
bad people.
yeah, it's not The Last of Us 2. That won't ever try it. But for those that can play a game for fun, it's a really cool little game. It's really, really good. Now, Ed, the thing I was mentioning that we forgot to do that wasn't Forza Horizon 4's Steam success and sales success was we forgot to update our Patreon page today. So I'm gonna quickly before
we didn't.
Well, I didn't see it in the downloads queue, so I've forgotten to to download it. So I guess before we go into that,
do you want me to shout them out?
No, it's okay. I can do this on the fly. Watch this for multitasking. If you open up
the chat, it's there.
Yep. Before we go to that, do you have a rumour mill? And I guess as we've got Jeff on, do you guys want to just drop any massive reveals about Elden Ring while you're here? Just ruin your lives further.
We got some questions about Elden Ring. I'm sure we'll talk about that then, right? You said there was a few people asking about that in the community questions.
Was there? I don't know if there is in this one.
Jeff Grubb's on. There's going to be Elden Ring questions thrown at him. It's your curse.
There's nothing new to say about Elden Ring.
Rumor mill. I don't know. You tell me not to say Nintendo stuff because we're an Xbox podcast.
I don't mind if you say Nintendo stuff. You can drop some Nintendo rumors out there if you're feeling.
Oh, look,
frisky.
I did get told something Nintendo based, which I was told I could even put on Twitter. And again, I'm old, so I just forget stuff, and I forgot to put it on Twitter. But I know, and I got to admit, like, I'm in the Nintendo era Discord. They seem to be very like up with knowing what is going on at Nintendo. Like sometimes I've dropped some stuff in there, and a lot of them have been like, "Yeah, we kind of knew that already." Like, they seem to be very, very up with it in there. One thing I got told about was the fact that there's going to be a third game in the Donkey Kong Country, I want to say Returns trilogy. So there's Donkey Kong Country Returns, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. There's going to be a third one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. For me personally, that was exciting because I love those bloody Donkey Kong Country games. They are so good. Like we were talking about before, Nintendo
they know how to make games.
Make really good fucking games.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if it's 2021 anymore because it's funny, when I was on Game On Daily with Jeff, I had said on that podcast that I think 2021 is going to be like one of the greatest gaming years of all time, COVID delays permitting.
Yeah.
It's looking like they're not going to permit the stuff that's... I'm gonna
it definitely looks that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm going to have to pull back on 2021 being an amazing year. Maybe it's 2022 now. Already I don't think God of War is going to make 2021. Maybe even Horizon Zero Dawn might not make 2021 because Sony has been quite silent about both those games since they've been announced.
Well, God of War 2, definitely not. Like, it only got a splash screen. There's no way they're going to do a Fallout 4 hype reveal and show it off in June,
I'll
July.
Be honest,
it comes out in November.
I have reason to believe the intention was fully to have God of War for 2021. That was the intention. This wasn't we know it's 2022, but we're going to say 2021 for hype. I believe the intention was fully to have it for 2021. And a lot of Nintendo stuff that's been rumored that was going to be 2021 is now looking like 2022 as well. Which
like
is
everybody else.
Yeah. The irony is it could just be Microsoft that ends up releasing in 2021 the stuff they said they would. But yeah, I only mostly care about Halo of the announced stuff.
Yeah.
And I'd be very...
it ain't slipping.
I don't think that's going to slip. I don't think Halo is slipping. But
no.
Yeah. So
yeah, they'll figure that one out.
Third Donkey Kong Country. I obviously have no idea what the name is, but yeah. Hopefully it makes 2021, but I don't know.
Cool.
Who's developing?
Yeah, Nintendo will do whatever the hell they want to do.
Yeah,
who's developing? Who's developing that? You just said you don't know. You don't know who's the developer on that game?
Don't.
The Donkey Kong Country.
No, I didn't get told because I don't think it's Retro. Retro's
it wouldn't be
now
Retro,
doing
right?
Metroid Prime 4. So
yeah, that's exciting on its own because it's like they got another developer doing something like Donkey Kong. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
The only rumor I'll just say is that March 26th one I looked into a little bit more after Jez's story. Don't get hype for the March 26th Xbox event. There might be some small games. It sounds like there will be some small games. They'll talk about services. There'll be some platitudes about how services are important and how gaming is important to Microsoft. They'll talk in those terms. But definitely don't expect any sort of big update on any big game from Microsoft until E3, with the exception of maybe something like an Age of Empires.
I was thinking whatever it was probably going to be the Ascent. Has been making a lot of noise on Twitter recently. They look like they're gearing up for a reveal of sorts. Lots of weird cryptic messages on the Ascent's Twitter account. I know that was a game that was originally scheduled to hit early 2021, around that launch window. COVID's obviously impacted it. I have to say, it does look absolutely gorgeous, and I'm looking forward to playing it. But I would imagine if it's anything, it would be games, that third-party indie type showcase, if at all.
We do need updates though on those indie games. Come on, where the hell is Tunic?
If they have Tunic there, that would be really nice. That would be a really
that game.
You probably don't show that at E3, so show it here and let us play it maybe soon.
Yeah,
please.
it looks. Really,
I played it in 2018.
Do you think the weapons will break?
What's that?
Do you think the weapons will break?
I don't remember if they. I don't remember if they did when they. Sorry, my camera broke here a little bit.
Yeah, it's all right. It's doing some hilarious things on OBS right now.
Yeah, of course.
Not just Tunic though. There's the oh god, that music one from Annapurna.
12 minutes.
Guitar one. No. The 12, guitar one.
Oh, okay, well.
Artful Escape.
Artful Escape. Yes. Artful Escape.
So, these kinds of games, maybe. I'm not no guarantees on any of them.
It's just what I thought when I read that. But
updates on indie games that we already know about. So that's where you should set your hype level for that event. If you get hype for that level, Satan will take you. Okay, you understand?
Don't ask for Elden Ring. It's not going to be there.
Dear God.
What even is Elden Ring?
It's nothing. It's a piece
vaporware.
of crap.
It's vaporware.
Okay, so before we dive into community questions, I'm just going to do... I saw this earlier on your stream. What's Elden Ring? Could you not find another E? Is the E missing?
My daughter's name is Emmy, and she took the other E because her name begins with an E. So I'm like, yeah, that's fair.
Fair enough. We get the gist. We get the gist. Before we dive into community questions, I do want to give a quick shout out to our patrons. Now, I have to admit that this list is not up to date, so I'm just going to quickly change it. Live and on the fly. That's how we roll. Boom, there it is.
There it is.
Scarecrow121, Torn Raptor, Nottian, Shadowgasm, Blaster Base, VK Andrew, Sowing Shade, K. That's new. I was wondering if that was a typo. Not Jack, Karis, and the return.
Big M's back
of the Big M iced coffee milk from presumably Australia. Thank you very much for your support of XboxEra.
Love that name.
Mostly appreciated.
So good.
And just as a heads up for the tier 3s out there, it came to my realization that we have not updated for the MVP 3 t-shirt, so I think Pre-Drag, our art guy, is hard at work on the next version.
Take the screen off now.
Without further ado, look at me, I'm all over the place today. I'm so nervous. Jeff's on. It's all very exciting.
So
without further ado, let's dive into community questions. So I will hand the microphone over to you, Nick, to go through them.
Okay. To the Patreon first. Blast the Bass. The Roundhouse video was so well done. I imagine you three would agree. Do you think that Xbox has finally learned its lesson with setting expectations?
Yeah, no. No.
I don't think you can ever... I don't know if Microsoft would ever truly properly learn its lessons when it comes to that kind of stuff. They're getting better at it. They are getting better at it. But I don't know if they'll ever truly get it. Again, in fairness to Microsoft, part of the problem has been content, which is what I was actually forgot to say earlier. Yep. Everyone bags the format of Inside Xbox. The problem with Inside Xbox isn't format. It's a lack of content. So if Microsoft was firing on all cylinders and pumping out Perfect Dark, Halo, Forza, Gears, Avowed, and these games were just coming out at a real decent click, and you knew that the upcoming Inside Xbox was going to announce more new stuff, you'd be hyped for Inside Xbox.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, everyone sings the praises of Direct, yet everyone shit all over the last Direct. Why? Because the content wasn't quite there. I think people have too much focus on formats. The formats are all but irrelevant. It's about what the content is.
Yeah, because there have been good Inside Xbox shows, particularly
a couple of
XO19.
Yes. The BC one.
The BC one. Yeah, those were great.
Everyone loved that BC one. How good. It was still the same format.
Yeah.
Still them cracking cringy jokes. Still them sitting on couches talking. But man, they went, hey, look at all these BC games. Bang, 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 bang. And look at these OG games. Bang, 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 bang. And we've X-enhanced all of Rez games. Bang, bang, bang. And everyone was like, holy shit, how good is this? Format was still the same.
Yeah.
It was still the same cringy format on the couches. Nothing changed.
Yeah.
They just had the content to make it better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they just need to, they need to have a really fire show, and then maybe on the other side of that, they can feel a little bit more comfortable to set experiences a little bit better. I think it's like a little bit of that's the tail wagging the dog or whatever. But it does feel that way. Like once they have the fire show, they'll be like, hey, we just had a really good show. The next one's gonna be like, it's gonna be a little bit more chill. But I do see Aaron Greenberg getting out there all the time now, be like, hey, no announcements at this thing. No announcements at this thing.
Yeah,
he's getting good about
he's
that
learning.
much. Yes,
He
learned
has
that
definitely
one.
learned.
He's learned that
Aaron
lesson. But
specifically.
yeah, yes. But in terms of setting expectations, like, they're going to mess up again. They're going to disappoint you again. Absolutely.
I think, I don't know if anyone else thought this, but I thought Erin Losey from the Bethesda publishing arm that was on the round table, they talked about, we had a bit of an argument. I reckon she might put Aaron in his place a little bit, maybe like dampen it down, like you need to chill, and she'll gun for his job. Watch out, Aaron, she's coming for you. But what I also think is Microsoft could do one very, very simple thing, and that is because they seem to love, if you look at Microsoft's presence on social media compared to Sony's, that's the primary comparison to draw, right?
It's chalk and cheese.
It is completely different. All of the execs. You look at. I saw a tweet the other day. Phil was on Twitter. He got matched with someone in Destiny 2. That person posted a picture. I got matched with Phil, and he responded, "You're never going to see Jim Ryan match with you in whatever game on PlayStation." And that then creates this sphere of discussion. You rewind a year. How many Xbox-focused podcasts were there? Really?
Not many.
Now there's tons. Podcasts because people love talking about it. And it's driven in part by that social media presence. So when they have an event, unfortunately, your audience is there looking with you, and you'll say something simple, and that's what always makes me laugh. Is they'll say a real boring sentence, and it'll be picked apart and discussed to death until the community itself has just whipped itself into this stir crazy frenzy. And then even if Microsoft don't say anything about anything, it's too late. The expectations have already been raised by your own community, and you're damned yourself.
But that's why on the Sony end, that's why Shu Yoshida is so loved, because he is active on social media.
Yeah.
Yes. And he interacts and he replies, and that's why everyone loves him.
Yeah.
He's the hippest guy they got. He goes, he dresses like a dork, but he seems so cool still. He seems like if you
he just seems happy all the time.
Yeah. You hang out with him at GDC, you're gonna have a good night. He's gonna take you to a good restaurant and stuff like that. That's what it seems like. I've never hung out with him, but he just seems nice.
Yeah. I think Sony need more of that, but then I think it would also create that similar problem, right? But I think there's got to be a happy medium, and I do like that Aaron is now. Bring it down.
He's just toned it down like Ross and Friends.
But I also find, I personally, the best moments Xbox have had on social media in terms of big explosions are when they've not said anything at all and something's leaked. The best example of that obviously being the Series S.
There's us, yeah.
They handled that. Yeah, I bet it was really stressful and damning for the team that was put together a video and did all the hard work. But it had the opposite effect. That made everyone happy. They laughed about it. They took it on the chin. It was great.
The Xbox Live price hike. That could have been a real black eye for a very long time. No one cares anymore. They handled it perfectly. They messed it up.
They did forget about that quick, didn't they?
Everyone was so mad that day, and by the end of that night, Ludwig Kietzman is talking about drinking his cup of wine because he's like, well, we got it. We figured it out. We put out the blog post. We apologized. I think we did a pretty good job about this, and they did. I mean, no one cares anymore. No one cares that they did it. Some Sony fanboys will come out and be like, oh, they were going to double the price. Now they're going to do that to Game Pass. It's like, well, you missed the point. The whole reason that they were so worried about this looking bad is because they thought that you might think now they're going to do this to Game Pass. They were very much explicitly about that. But they're good at putting out fires, maybe better than anyone. They have a team that's maybe better at that than anyone else in games. Yeah. So an important job to have, but you want to get to a point where you're not having so many fires in the first place, right? So
well, I was about to say they're very experienced at putting out fires, which is why they've become good at it.
Yeah. I mean, I did see that they made a hire. I can't remember his name. The guy from the New York Times.
From Netflix. Didn't they hire someone from Netflix?
No, he's been around for a while. There's the guy who's now in charge of executive communications, and I'm apologies, the name completely escapes me.
Yeah, I think I got this email and I don't remember either.
But he was hired. You got to wonder, is that to help control that pipeline as they go through this journey of Game Pass and Bethesda and everything else? But yeah, good question, Blast the Bass. Thank you.
That was just one question.
I know.
Jesus.
Suck it up, boys.
The Scarecrow 121. Good day. G'day. He's Aussie. G'day, sirs. Good sirs. Now that 20 of the Bethesda published games are into Game Pass, do you think we will see the rest drip feed in, or will it be something to hold on to for later? Drip feed.
Yeah, they'll come as they're ready, I think. I don't think they're going to have... I don't think they're going to make
a big... I'll want to space it out. To say, hey, this month we've got these games, and this month we've got... Because don't forget, there's a big back catalogue of Bethesda games still. So it would make more sense to space it out so that each month you have a decent number of games going in there as games are leaving.
I think if you can think about some versions might need updating. If they're planning on emulating and mirroring what's on the PC store versus what's on console, yes, the effect of it might feel like a drip feed, but I think equally, Jeff's phrase, when it's done, as they come, that one's ready, right? It goes in with the 7 other games that they've arranged for this batch, and that one's ready, and it goes in. Or we got 3 ready this month because they're only little. But I think that's probably the cadence. But I wouldn't expect another. Here's the other 50 games or whatever is left outstanding.
Have you seen how many games are actually on there now?
Yeah, it's 370.
I don't know. I jumped into my games and apps thing on the Xbox last night, and again, I'm notoriously horrible at maths, but I was counting the entire list, and it came to like almost 300 games just on the console, and I'm just like, wow, that's only going to like increase as they keep pumping out more games. Like, oh my god, there's so many games on there. Anyway, hopefully we answered that question.
Yeah.
Proven. There still seems to be some denial/confusion around Bethesda's exclusivity. There isn't. Not even just with fans, but with media outlets who still seem to think these games will eventually come to non-Xbox platforms. Why is this happening? Also, it seems like everyone expects Starfield to come out this year. Does Jeff feel the same way? Thanks and keep up the great work. I think Starfield's this year.
I think Starfield's this year. If I had to put money down on it and and if it doesn't come out this year and I lose that money, I would say it's coming out this year.
Me too.
So yeah, and then in regards to the confusion and the media, so in the media, if you're looking in the media to make definitive statements, that's the problem. Is because we can only write what we know is fact, what we know is true, and so when we go out and I write a story, I'd be like, well, the man did say this, but he left a door open, and he did do that. That is a fact. So I have to tell you that. That's I can tell you what my hunch is, what my feeling is, and what it seems like he's saying. But at that point, I'm editorializing, and I do that in my stories. Absolutely, I try to tell you what I think is going to be the truth. But when you just kind of read the text, and when you just kind of, especially on a lot of other sites that do a little bit less editorializing than we do, you're going to get to a point where they're just going to say, oh yeah, he said the word legacy, and a lot of games have legacy on PlayStation consoles if you use this various definition of legacy. And so they're going to tell you all that this stuff could possibly mean without being definitive, because he didn't speak it like a lawyer. He didn't say exactly 100%. He didn't say Starfield's going to be exclusive. He didn't say those words. So
the door's
everyone's
open.
got to speculate. Yeah, the door is open, and it doesn't feel like it's open very far. It doesn't feel like it's open at all for Starfield, really. But based on those words, you could still imagine a world where maybe it does, or maybe it's timed exclusive. Maybe it's all these other things. I see I'm speculating already. So, that's where the confusion is.
Leaving money on the table is another good one.
Yeah, I think Proven's question is probably driven by some of those hot takes earlier, because there is also an element of, I've seen a lot of very Sony focused, shows and people discussing this acquisition, because regardless of whether it's a Sony show or not, it's probably the biggest thing that's happened in the industry in terms of a business merger in
a long time.
Ever. Very, very big.
I would argue. I mean, the internet wasn't really a thing back then, or social media wasn't a thing back then. But I'd argue Sega bowing out was bigger.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, Activision Blizzard merging was probably the next closest thing. Yeah.
But I think he's probably referring to takes that he is presumably feels are disingenuous or whiny or whatever the case may be. And I guess my response to that is, if you're running a show with an audience and you're getting paid for that show, there is an element that you have to, depending upon your format, you got to play to your audience. There is a certain amount of showmanship to it. So I'm not referring to journalists there. I'm referring to what I think he's probably talking about.
Yeah, and there's a lot of PlayStation podcast hosts that are just going to be like, they're going to think about it and like, oh, why would you leave all that money on the table? We'll buy your game for $70. We're buying all this other crap for $70. We'll buy this stuff too, please. And they can't sort of think past that. They're like, well, do they hate money? And it's like, well, you got to. Satya Nadella's thing is tied to Game Pass, and they're already not listening to you anymore. They're not going to hear that. They're like, I'll pay $70 for that. Who doesn't want my $70? It's just a lack of analysis a little bit, and it's not necessarily. I'm not trying to be insulting. It's just like they're not taking in all the facts so that they can even make an accurate analysis. They're just thinking about it as far as. But it's
also an inability to move on from the old way of thinking.
Yes.
Because it's been that way for 30 plus years. So there's just this inability to accept this new shift.
Yeah, you see that all the time, right? When people are like, well, console cycles are 5 years long. It's like, man, if a console cycle hasn't been 5 years long in a very long time. It's just like, a bunch of consoles early on lasted for 5 years.
Yeah.
The last one was like 7 years. The one before that was 8 years. That's the most recent history. That's what you should be looking to. But no, they grew up and it was like 5 years, 5 years, 5 years. So that's what they think it's always going to be. They can't even make that distinction. So the idea that the business model is going to change in a way that they haven't even seen at all yet, they can't necessarily imagine that.
But it's such a good one though. It's such a good one though. I don't get it.
I mean, we prefer it with our media in movies and CDs and audio. So it's inevitable.
I don't know. If Sony just matched Game Pass 1-for-1, I would sub so fast.
Yeah, but
so fast.
They're not gonna. They can't make those games on Game. They can't. At least not as many as they do. Like a Naughty Dog game is way too expensive. It really is.
I know, and they take too long to make.
Yep.
Okay, Dio Game has an absolute belter of a question here. There's a lot here. It's been one heck of a week for Xbox, hasn't it? The excitement surrounding the future of the brand is super high. We also know a Bethesda and Xbox co-event is coming this summer.
E3.
Do we know that?
Yeah, they said we're going to do two separate shows.
A double header, yeah.
I was about to say, it's not
two events.
Yeah, to me, co-event means one, but okay.
Yeah.
The only question I wonder is, how do you think the team should approach this event? Bethesda and Xbox have always been very different in the types of shows they pull off, with Bethesda tending to favour deep dives into their games, and Xbox a high quantity of bangers one after the other, both first and third party. This is not meant to be viewed as a quantity versus quality judgment of either. It's just the reality that Bethesda is a third party with a decent, but not Ubisoft level, earth-shattering number of studios, and Xbox as a platform holder had a responsibility to spotlight partner titles, and often did so in greater amounts due to smaller first party. This is obviously not the case now. Do you see their summer show as solely first party? Do you suspect something like last year where third party titles had their own smaller section and Jeff got some to show? Or do you suspect an old MS E3 approach? Also, do you expect Microsoft to focus on showing a lot of games? or do you expect them to now to hold the cards closer to the chest and show longer pieces of games, knowing people may inevitably ask where State of Decay 3, Fable, etc. are? Thanks.
I'm glad you just got Herman Melville as a listener.
I want to go, yes, no, yes, yes,
oh,
no, yes.
And the other thing is we kind of spoke about some of this stuff.
Yeah. I'll just let me reiterate. I have ADHD, so I don't remember half the questions he asked. But so let me just I'll go to the top of the dome here. Microsoft's show will probably still feel mostly like a Microsoft show, and Bethesda show is going to feel mostly like a Bethesda show. They'll be different, and they'll be back to back, and they'll emphasize the strengths of each brand now. Even though they're all under one roof, they're still two different brands, especially going into the E3. And so, yes, Microsoft will still have a pretty big spotlight on third-party games. They're going to need that because they're going to need to spotlight some stuff for later this year when their a lot of first-party games will be ready. If anything, there'll be like a shorter, a teaser trailer, sort of, something popping off quickly. It's like 3 minutes long that splices a bunch of footage together of first-party games that we'll hear more about next year. But for the most part, just expect the Bethesda show to look like you remember, and then expect the Xbox show to kind of be what they've done in the recent past.
Yeah. I expect it to be almost status quo, because now Bethesda's show is effectively follow-up Xbox show now.
Yes.
So, if anything, you could almost now see Microsoft go harder on third-party, maybe, if anything. I'm not saying that's what will happen. I'm just saying it could actually have the opposite effect, where they go harder on the third-party deals, knowing they've got another first-party show coming right after theirs.
Yeah,
you could even have like some Xbox, let's say that Bethesda's now let's emphasize Bethesda.net launcher. This is going to start hosting a lot of Microsoft games, the Win32 versions of some Microsoft games, and let's talk about that during the Bethesda show. So
we didn't even talk about that. We didn't talk about what are they going to do with the Bethesda launcher. What are they going to do with Bethesda accounts?
And I asked PR, and they said we have nothing new to announce at this time, so we're going to have to wait for answers. I mean, of course, they don't have answers yet.
Do they migrate Bethesda accounts into just being Microsoft accounts?
I think so. Well, I mean, I think if you have a Bethesda account and you merge it with your Microsoft account, if you have Game Pass, all those games, the Win32 versions, just show up in the Bethesda.net launcher. And I think this is probably why they haven't worried about getting Game Pass on Steam, because they're like, hey, if you want the Win32 version instead of the UWP version, then we're gonna have a solution for you, and it's gonna be Bethesda.net.
Well, I don't think many of the. I could be wrong here. I'm pretty sure that they've kicked UWP down the road now. A lot of the
but I think the
store,
game,
they're still in a wrapper. They're still in that Apex wrapper, but it is a Win32 executable once you kind of take that wrapper off. I can't remember.
Okay, that sounds right. But the reason people like the Steam versions a lot of times is because it doesn't even have that wrapper, and you have to deal with the store and stuff like that. So
the store is still trash, and that is that world of living under Terry Morrison's Windows division. You've got to use our store, help promote our store, sell some games. But cool.
Still have quite a few questions.
You're gonna have to cherry pick after Patreon.
Yeah, might have to. If Jeff's in a rush, we might have to. Somnia, what are you most excited about? The future with Bethesda now part of Xbox.
I'll say that for myself real quick. Just that I think it's. I'm excited that all those people that work at Bethesda still have jobs and can make the games they want to make, and I think that was something that could have gone away in the next year or two. They would have had to start closing studios, start cutting jobs.
Arcane especially.
Arcane would have been first on the chopping block, and that would have been really sad for a lot of people because there's just not a lot of studios making those kinds of games. I do think we're gonna get immersive sims from the indie community here very soon that do match the kind of stuff we were getting from Arcane, and that'll kind of be the next sort of Metroidvania sort of bursting in from the indie scene. But why wait for that? That stuff's still gonna happen. But why not let Arcane continue to make those kinds of games, put them on Game Pass where they could thrive? That's what I'm most excited about. I'm glad those people all still have jobs. That's
Arcane in particular. I'm mentioning Arcane because Arcane specifically, they would have been the studio that if Bethesda just had, or ZeniMax had no choice, they're like, guys, we've got to cut one of our studios. They probably would have been the one.
Yes.
And it's a
Like,
shame because they've made
it
some
is.
fantastic
Yeah, they make
games.
really. It's that kind of stuff where people see a trailer and they're like, "Oh, that looks cool," but I'm not sure I want to drop $60. Cool.
Right. Yeah. And now you
thing.
don't have to. Now they get I mean, how is that
right.
not so exciting for people? Like to me that's just so thrilling. And this is why like I always push back against I don't push back, but I'm like I just don't care as much about the worry about consolidation. Yeah, it is consolidation. There are issues inherent to that. But boy, all these people still have jobs, and it's not like if they weren't it's the alternative to this consolidation was the closure of something like Arcane, and that's not a great alternative. That's not better than consolidation. There are alternative ways to do this to make this business work, but they're not just going to pop out of the ground out of nowhere. It's going to take time to get there. In the meantime, let's let them consolidate. Let all these people continue making games with a new business model that is inevitable. It feels like so. Yeah, I'm excited for all that.
Imagine
I can't say
Arcane
anything
now.
more than that. To be honest with you, I think that's probably the pretty quintessential gut feel from everyone here.
Yeah, like that's the thing though. Like, imagine Arcane now with the backing of Microsoft and the utter freedom to go bonkers and do whatever the hell they want.
Yep.
Like that's
the freedom of Game Pass to like really experiment. Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Okay. Big M iced coffee milk. Okay. I love that name so much. When do you think that xCloud will finally fully release in Australia? I've been dying to try it out, but haven't been able to get into the preview program. Mate, it's supposed to be this year, I'm pretty sure. I'm on iOS. I don't know if you're on iOS or Android, but I'm on iOS, so I'm looking forward to it. You know what? I've got a Samsung TV inside. I'll take the Samsung app and play it in the lounge room. Like I want something.
Do you want me to ping you the Game Pass PC app and try it on your Surface?
Okay.
Cool.
There you go.
You can try it out.
I'll give it a go.
I'll probably
like
put a
to try
guide
it.
together because you can download it. Like I'm not stealing something from Microsoft here. You can download it. There's a guide on YouTube how to do it. It's not hard.
Oh, you might have already done this, and I think I tried and it didn't work.
Yeah, it is doable. But I'll see what I can help with.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
It should be this year. It should be this year, as far as I know.
Yeah.
Here we go. Keris.
Okay,
here we
so
go.
we have to preempt every Keris question. Sit down, right? Get your smoking pipe out, put a jacket on, open your book, put your listening face on. I often stroke my beard when listening to a Keris question because it takes us on a journey.
This one's not too bad. I've kind of pressured them into, like, I was like, you're gonna drop anything, and they're like,
I'm not feeling whimsical today.
Yeah, you're not going to talk about, but it's not going to be all about Bethesda. There's not much I can add. I'm like, okay, no pressure. They gave in. Good morning, panel. Again. And of course, Jeff. Lovely, lovely Jeff. You know what? I'm going to say something here. If you are going to address John and myself as panel and not by names, then
fine.
Don't ask us questions, okay? That's rude as shit.
Hey,
Okay?
I still I love you. Great question so far.
It's very rude. Okay, we have names. We have feelings.
I can
We're
be panel.
people.
She can call me.
We're not panel. We're not panel, okay?
It's fine.
Okay. Who would have thought it would happen like it did? Oh, yeah, that's right. Most right-minded people. Anyway, I was thinking over a cuppa where I would like to spend a holiday. And I have always dreamed of being out in Iceland in a cabin with an open fire and be able to sit and watch the Aurora Borealis wrapped up warm with a steaming mug of hot chocolate, flavoured by a not inconsiderable amount of Baileys. Oh yeah, Xbox. Which Bethesda world would the panel and the ever-delightful Jeffrey wish to spend a holiday in?
Well, now, here's an interesting fact about panel here. I've been to Iceland. And I've done exactly that. I climbed what they class as I guess to my 16-year-old self, it was a mountain, and I sat in a starry sky and watched the Aurora Borealis go overhead. I didn't have a hot cup of cocoa laced with Baileys. I had a very warm beer, but it was one of the most magical experiences of my life, and I will always remember it. And I want to go back, and I want to take my.
But what about
family
which
there.
Bethesda world though?
I was just
like
responding in kind. If I was to hide in a Bethesda world, it wouldn't be Fallout because it doesn't look like fun. It looks like a real hard time.
Doom? Go to
Doom,
hell?
maybe
Doom?
not. I would like to hang out in the apartment in Prey before I go and encounter evil aliens.
Yeah.
Check out what consoles he's got.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'll go with that.
Because it's just the regular old apartment.
Yeah, no one's going to kill me there.
I do like the fantasy world of Skyrim quite a bit, so Elder Scrolls world would be cool. But if I was getting like damned to one, like if I was like in trouble with like with the devil or whatever, and he's like, you gotta be going one of these games, and he like sent me to Wolfenstein, I'd be like, well, at least I get to kill Nazis, so that's something.
Man's got
like,
a point.
Yeah, it's not the. I mean, it'd be bad that Nazis are in charge, but at least I get to kill them.
Yeah, you could go out fighting. Yeah, that's a fair comment.
Yeah, exactly.
Point.
Yeah.
What about you,
That's
panel?
a good point. Panel in brackets 2.
Yeah.
Maybe the ye-old world of Death of the Outsider. Seems like a relatively normal place.
Lots of whale stink.
Yeah. Lots of rats around too.
Yeah.
And weird creatures, kind of like Australia. So
Yeah, be right at home.
maybe the world.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's why that's why you would go
Ban
there
Island.
in Australia. Yeah, it's basically the same thing in my
Look,
mind.
that spider's eating a bird. That's fine. That's
right.
normal.
It's funny you say that. I saw a funny video on Twitter the other day it was of course Australia, and there was this ginormous spider just crawling on the car, and someone's recording this spider on their car. Magpie just comes along, swoops in, grabs it, and off it flies.
You live in a really fucked up world.
That's just Australia every day. Okay. Last question comes from Pete. Now that the whole exclusive or not thing has been put to bed, to help move away from the negativity of that discussion, can you do a section on everything that you guys know about Starfield so that we can give the forum something positive and exciting to focus on?
That's a really great
question. We sort of did, didn't we?
Well, we talked about where we think it's coming out, but what do we know? We know it's going to be...
I don't know anything.
Well,
it's set in space.
I mean... Yeah, it's set in space and all that. Yeah, if you want the detail, that's the kind of stuff where it's like, let's let the developers communicate that instead of us. Like, even if I did know, and I don't know anything really, so it's like, well, they're gonna show a trailer, let them explain their game how they want to explain it. Like, yeah, I'll tell you like maybe when to get hyped, but we addressed what we do know, and it's probably coming this year.
Yeah, the game specifics and details we really don't know.
It's got spaceships in it.
Yeah.
Planets and stuff.
Probably. You would hope.
They'll be set in space and there'll be space exploration
Maybe.
in it.
Don't know.
And you'll probably get missions to do, I reckon.
Yeah, who knows?
Something along those lines. There might be some hilarious bugs in it, and people make videos about those bugs.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah. All right. So do we go to the forum now?
Yeah, but let's cherry pick the good ones. Let's pick the good ones out of the forum's beast.
I feel bad though. I feel bad leaving stuff behind.
Yeah, but we got to make this call at some point. There's no point asking a useless question.
If we could like go just like hit them quick, I'm fine. Like I told my wife we'd be 2 hours. We're like an hour and 45 minutes. We're doing all right.
Okay. Okay. Phalaxis. Never asked the question before, but why the hell not? During the recent Iron Lords podcast, Jason Ronald was a guest, and when asked what his most anticipated game for 2021, his reply was, not all games that are releasing this year have been announced. What do you guys think these still to be announced games could be? Personally, I would love to see Forza Horizon 5, prefer it over the Motorsport series. Jeff, do you know anything?
that poker face.
I think you're right. I think you got it. I mean, what do you want me to say? Yeah, that sounds right, man. Forza. I mean, I know Jason Ronald likes Forza Horizon games a lot, so maybe.
Yeah,
man. It's probably Forza Horizon 5.
Yeah, and let's be clear here, right? I think that the Playground team, they have from day one through to Forza Horizon 4, they've hit that 2-year cadence with a game that is bug-free for the most part, rock-solid performance, and always an evolution on previous one. Now, technically, they've had an extra year now.
Right.
Yeah.
That thing's ready. That thing's ready,
see it
right?
not being
You just know it is. Yeah. You know, yeah. Let's just use the circumstantial evidence. Jason Ronald likes Forza Horizon games. The game's had an extra year of development. Playground Games has multiple studios. One is working on with the Fable, but they would never stopped working on Forza Horizon.
Yeah.
Things probably coming.
Yeah. Okay, so you know what I'm going to do? Instead of just flat out skipping over questions, I will acknowledge that these people ask questions and that we kind of covered what
That's a good idea.
they're asking.
That's a good idea.
Perfect.
Bigsy has asked the question around expanding the studios under Bethesda, and do you think they can do more in the future and have more than one project? We've kind of covered that kind of stuff. Liam S has asked a whole bunch of questions like Liam does, and we've basically talked about each and every one. Indiana Jones exclusivity, Forza Horizon 4's performance, the Roundtable, ID Tech Engine, which we said in our podcast back when it happened. But he does mention about Tango being a great step. Do you think that they could be acquiring in Japan? Again, it's a topic we have covered before. Yeah. But I'm acknowledging
deals.
that he's asked that question.
They'll make a deal. They're working on deals, but not acquisitions.
Delroy, this one I do want to ask. Now that the Bethesda deal is a wrap, we can discuss important matters. TMNT is back and looks totally tubular, dudes. What other cartoons from your childhood are in desperate need of a video game adaptation / revival? I like this question.
Sorry, Jeff, we're going to be about half hour extra now because of this.
All right, yeah, man, I'm here. Right. Let's do it. I'm going to get my seatbelt on.
Bucky
Thundercats.
What?
Thundercats.
Oh, Thundercats. Cool. Yeah, the proper version, the OG. Fine with it.
Thundercats.
Yeah, but Bucky O'Hare for me. Do you guys even know what that cartoon is?
Yes, I do know.
Yeah.
Ren and Stimpy.
I'm older than you, man. As if I don't know what Bucky O'Hare is.
Ren and Stimpy, as a cool, that art style.
There were some cool Game Boy Ren and Stimpy games. I don't know if they were cool, but I remember playing some when I was a kid.
I'm just trying to think of games that would translate well to video games.
Right. I mean that Platinum did that Transformers game, so it's maybe take that a step further, make Voltron. It even better. Yeah, like a real Ghostbusters game, but make it half management sim, where you are managing the business of a Ghostbusters. Cool. That'd be cool. There's all kind and the real Ghostbusters, the cartoon too. I don't know. Just about anything from my childhood. Of course, I want my childhood back. I'm 37 years old. I'm gonna die any day now. Come on.
For me, it's Thundercats. Thundercats for sure.
Thundercats is a good one.
That could be an awesome Streets of Rage 4 style revival beat 'em up thing. Thundercats are going to be awesome.
I have a special, and I think the thing I love about Thundercats is the animation is still so good, even today.
Oh yeah.
And the music.
Yeah.
The music, that intro.
Great.
And when I saw the new Thundercats, that's always comedy and Powerpuff Girls stylings, I was like,
oh, I haven't seen that one. I saw the one in between.
The anime.
So there's the original.
Style. Yeah.
And then there was that anime which wasn't too far distance from the original. I like that one a lot.
I've got to go find Lino, Snarf. Yeah,
that was really good.
Someone's going to clip that and I'm going to hate them for it.
Thundercats was underrated as hell. I like that cartoon a lot. I think it'd be great as a video game.
Good question.
Farsight, the real question: Dishonored or Prey? Dishonored for me.
I can't comment.
Yeah, probably from.
Yeah,
Dishonored probably for me as well. I think I like Prey a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, for me it's Dishonored. The next question, and that came from Farsight XR20. Sadistic magician. Hard-hitting question. Does Jeff Grubb like being called Jeffrey? My name is Timothy and I hate it with a passion. Only mum uses my full name. I'm 42 years old and she still won't call me Tim. Awesome show. I assume you're doing the podcast in robes and smoking pipes after being correct on Bethesda.
I'm smoking
I'm the same. I'm the same. My parents call me Nicholas and no one else does. They don't call me Nick and will never call me Nick. It's always Nicholas.
Yeah, I get Jonathan.
How about you're okay with Jeffrey, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm fine. The thing is like Jeff is such a Jeff sounds like a punchline, and I like Jeff. I prefer Jeff to Jeffrey, but I don't actually care that much either way. But like if you need a funny name in like a sketch, and you just go like Jeff, like it's like has that sound, like it's a funny sound. So it's like I've always like been like, hey, my name sounds kind of like the name of a clown. That's fine. But my mom doesn't call me Jeffrey or Jeff. For some reason, she calls me Jeff. I guess it must have been when she called was Jeff with like 2 P's. It's like a pet name or whatever. Like when I was a little kid, I'm sure she called me that. My dad called me Boo Bear, so he still calls me Boo sometimes. But yeah, mostly it's either way. I don't really care. You can call me Jeffrey. You can call me Jeff. I guess if I were like to have one preference, it would probably just be Jeff.
Okay. Okay, Jimmy 1984. It's a question specifically for me, and I don't know if I can really go into it. It's basically around Techland. And do I know what's going on with Techland?
What's going on with Techland, man?
Didn't they announce a re-reveal for...
Yeah, Wednesday.
Light 2. They did on Twitter just like yesterday.
There you go.
I don't know.
That's what's going on with Techland.
I don't know what I can say with Techland, if anything at all. So I guess that's where I'll leave it. Interpret that however you want to interpret. I am very like I've said this before. I annoy my sources to death with asking permission for stuff. Like, so if they haven't given me a green light for something or whatever, then I'm not going to say it. And honestly, this Techland thing, I don't know if I can say anything.
Fair.
So, sorry, Jimmy. Sorry, mate. Apache asks a question about Game Pass, basically, and
do we think it's
how
going to be
big do we think it's going to be? And yeah, I mean, again, we've kind of talked about that.
The answer is yes.
It is. It's Game Pass is just going to get... Microsoft made a long-term, very smart move by being first on this and becoming the standard bearer, just like Netflix. Like, Disney Plus is huge, but Netflix is still what people just call streaming Netflix because Netflix is just the standard.
Yeah.
Right. People get mad when something's not on Netflix.
Yeah, that's right.
And
like
everyone has Netflix.
Yeah, that's right. I think you mentioned that on that podcast, on B-Rap's podcast. You were talking about how Netflix is just so big now that people just expect everything on Netflix. Like,
right.
So Microsoft was very smart to jump in early with that. Prof JJJ has asked a few questions. He asks one about Game Pass subs and what Jeff thinks the goals are. I mean, they've kind of said that. Like, their goal is obviously going to be to get as many as physically possible.
I think we could probably say, if your question is about acquisitions or Game Pass goals, there's not a lot more we can say than has already been said in the last 72 hours.
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah, I mean, he also asks about Japan-Asia goals again.
Deals.
They're looking and they want to be there.
Deals.
They really do.
Yeah. They're trying to sign a deal right now, and you probably can figure it out by looking behind some people. Yeah.
Yep. Do you think we'll see Shinji Mikami's dream project at some point? That the open world sci-fi one. Again, that's the beauty of Game Pass. Hopefully now Shinji might have the freedom and feel comfortable enough to go, hey, Pete or Phil, I really want to make this game now. It's bonkers, and I want to do A, B, C, D. And maybe Phil will just be like, man, go do it.
Yeah.
Go do it. Don't stress about how many copies you sell. Just go do it. Make it bonkers. Make it the most different game there is on our service. Like, that's the beauty of it. Those opportunities are there now. So hopefully he does. Isn't he like the original creator of Resident Evil? Like,
yes.
That's like, I think people are forgetting that he is now under Microsoft.
Pretty cool.
Which is pretty cool. Okay, last question from Reva93, because I think this is fairly easy to answer. Who is the Matt Booty equivalent at Bethesda now? From yesterday's roundtable, I was getting the vibe it was Todd Vaughn. But do we know for sure? I thought it was Pete Hines. Or am I wrong?
So Matt Booty is like
Xbox first party.
Head of studios. He's head of Xbox Game Studios.
I think Pete Hines is like head of communications.
Yeah.
Oh,
right?
is he? Oh, okay. My mistake then. I thought it was Pete Hines.
Yeah, because he's the guy I email when I have questions. So like, yeah, and I wouldn't do that to like Matt Booty because Matt Booty he doesn't communicate. So yeah, I'm not. Maybe that's Todd Vaughn. I mean, it's probably Todd Howard.
Yeah, he's executive
right?
producer. He's the well-known face.
Yeah, at least on the Bethesda Game Studios games for sure. But I imagine he's probably looking above a lot of studios there and having a say. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it might be Todd. I don't know. Well, that was the last question from the forum.
Now I've preempt and had a quick look on Twitter. So
there's so many.
If you want me to pass this, I'm going to skip the ones that I think are skippable, i.e. we've answered them. Much love to the people that asked them, but there are a couple that I think is interesting. The first one is from Malik Labs. Do you guys think Square Enix is selling off its Western division? And if so, is Xbox looking at them? I've not heard a thing on that front. So, don't know.
I don't know.
That's news to me.
I'm looking at it too. There's not that many Twitter questions because there's 2 threads of Twitter questions.
Yeah,
one from the update where we said Jeff's coming, and the main one. Yep. The update one doesn't really have any questions.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the main page. If you want to stay on the update page, we can pick up what's there.
Look, I would give anything to have Microsoft specifically get Crystal Dynamics and Nix's.
Yeah, you
from
love
Square
Nix's.
Enix. No, Nix's are like Bluepoint. They're like this super technically competent studio that just do amazing stuff. And if you were to give them the resources and the freedom to do their own thing, I think there's a lot of potential there. But at the moment, they're kind of like Bluepoint. They do ports and very, very, very good ports and stuff like that. But I love Crystal Dynamics because I love those Tomb Raider games.
Yeah.
So I would love if Square Enix sell off their Western division to Xbox. For me personally,
if Square Enix is selling, Microsoft's buying. Yeah, that would be my guess. If Square Enix is going to put that stuff up for sale, Microsoft would be first in line. That would be my guess. But I just
would think so.
I don't think that Square Enix is actually going to sell it though.
No?
I know that they always treat their Western developers as like the scapegoats for why their business is doing bad or whatever. And maybe Avengers has fully changed their mind and that they do want out of that. But it's like it takes a lot of work to acquire all that stuff, and like it's an opportunity cost to sort of sell it. Like you're losing the chance to take more chances, and then if you ever want to do that stuff again, you have to build it all up from scratch. I don't know. Square Enix is in a pretty decent position, even as it makes like big failures like Avengers. So I think they'll probably just keep trying to go for hits. And then if they're ever in a super rough position, maybe they'll sell then. But I don't think that's coming anytime soon.
Okay.
The other question from Malik.
Yes.
Was
now I am doing something here that relates to this question. Okay. Sorry.
Well, do you want me to ask the question whilst you're doing that?
No. Okay, I've got it. Okay. So. Malik Labs, and see how seriously I'm taking this question, mate. I'm looking at a DM here. Now, he asks, do you think the Coalition has a second project, Gears spin-off or new IP? And what do you think about global publishing? Who are they partnering with? Okay, the Coalition. The Coalition, what do I know about the Coalition? The Coalition does have a second team. They don't just have one team. They have a second team, and they are spitballing ideas. That's what I know about the Coalition.
There you
go. They have ideas, and they do have 2 teams.
And that's
now I don't know how known or unknown that was. I personally had no idea that Coalition had 2 teams. Personally,
no.
But like Jeff, was that a known thing?
I don't know. Yeah, okay. I didn't know that. I don't think I remember hearing that. Know. So,
the thing is, it kind of, out of all of the Microsoft studios, that's the one that makes the most sense to me because they are the most proficient team. They're with Unreal. They're super efficient in what they make. Gears 5 launched mostly bug-free. There was one I had,
Yeah.
but it was minor. And you think, when I think of Gears, I think Microsoft keeps trying to push the series down this bombastic, ticks every box from the old days where, you had to have multiplayer, you had to have collectibles, you had to have single player. And for me, and I'm speaking very generally, I know that there is a dedicated Gears audience out there that loves the multiplayer to death, but I think I just don't think, for the majority, I think it's a one and done game. The campaign, I launch it up, I play it in co-op, I have a really good time, I finish, I laugh at the silliness of it, and then that's it. I don't go back, I don't load it up on Nightmare. I'm done. And if Gears wants to survive as a big budget title, it either needs to pivot what it does, and I think we saw the beginnings of that with Gears 5. But I also think that the Coalition is ripe to maybe just try another hat on. You've got some super talented people there. It makes perfect sense for me for that team to have a preconception phase of coming up with something else, their own take. Even if it's a spin-off, fine. I mean, I won't be particularly happy. I'd love to see them flex their muscles elsewhere, but let them do it. And you've got to wonder, right, with this, we want to let the creative teams be creatively led and do what they want to do. You got any of these studios that are like, we're the Forza studio, we're the Gears studio. You've got to wonder that the leadership got to be going, guys, they get to make whatever they want to make. Can we try some of that? I hope that that's a conversation that's happening.
Yeah,
I
for
agree.
sure. Now I'm just trying to think. There was a couple of questions from a couple of different people about ID Tech Engine. Again, we kind of talked about that, the Bacon Life and someone else.
Yeah.
Vega tweets. They asked about ID Tech and who do we think might use it. But I think they might end up putting it in GameStack myself.
Yeah, definitely.
100%.
Seems likely.
Yeah, Magic casts Shane Bailey about the digital showcase and what do we think. Again, we kind of talked about that. Same with Brandon B. So again, guys, we acknowledge that you've asked those questions and we apologise, but man, we're going long. What else? Baker Street 226. Again, we kind of talked about this, 23 Studios, what would you like to see in the future? Gears FPS or a Halo spin-off on ID Tech?
Just
stuff
new
we've talked
ideas.
about.
That's what I want to see. New ideas, things.
There's another acquisition question here from
They love those
Hydronics. I know, we've been through so much of it. Now, I'd like these questions from Warhammer Dave or Dave_Warhammer. I'll ask because they're a bit different. The Bethesda community is unlike anything else in gaming, from lore YouTubers like Fudge Muppet and Cableworks. I have no idea who they
Some
are.
interesting name choices, but okay.
Yeah, to the Skyblivion and Skywind teams completely remaking Oblivion and Morrowind from scratch. What are some ways do you think Xbox can capitalize on it, like Bethesda didn't? He has a second question also, but I'm... maybe this is all part of it. Personally think Xbox would be smart to officially hire talented YouTubers like Fudge Muppet and Camelworks to be lore masters, do official Xbox Game Studios marketing, and maybe even writing for Bethesda, as well as hire the teams of modders to make official remakes of Bethesda games. Interesting question. That would be a very big shift in how Microsoft does stuff.
Isn't the obvious thing just like make QuakeCon a big Microsoft party? Like that's the big thing. Like, bring those YouTubers into that thing.
Yeah,
let them have their own sessions. Make it a big deal there. Make the have where they go over the lore, but even like come up with new ideas or something like that. Based on what the fans think. Working together.
The thing is though,
but do it at QuakeCon.
The thing is though, and I don't know if I really want to go down this path, but the other issue that Microsoft in particular, more than anyone else, needs to be careful with this stuff is, we've seen it in the past. We've seen it in the Smash community. We've seen it everywhere. Phil and the Xbox team are busy people. Yeah? Super, super busy people. They're not going to have the time to check the backgrounds, especially the social media backgrounds, of every single YouTuber and Twitter person that they interact with.
Yeah.
But they're also acutely aware of the blowback and what comes with associating with people when it comes out 5 years down the track that this YouTuber or Twitter personality has a checkered history. So
you saw it a little bit delicate, with Brazil, right? The Brazilian YouTubers.
And Warhammer Dave, I'm not saying that Fudge Muppet and Camelworks have skeletons in the closet. That's not what I'm saying at all. I have no idea who they are.
Sounds like they do based on the name, but that's just me being prejudiced. So.
Yeah. I have no idea who these people are, but which also means I have no idea what their backgrounds are. So, and I doubt Phil does either. So, but if it turns out that, let's say, hypothetically, Fudge Muppet, I don't know, has something... I'm not going to say something really controversial here. Let's say Fudge...
Yeah, like grooming. Like that's something that happened like in the Smash community. Like grooming someone who's underage to like eventually, have a relationship with them or something like that.
And all of a sudden...
It's something that's like hard to track that stuff down.
That's right.
And it's like, do you want to take that risk? Yeah.
Yeah, and all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, what's Phil doing over there? He's sitting there encouraging
even if it's
groomers.
just like you associate it with the Smash esports community now.
Yeah,
When I think of the Smash esports community, and the competition scene, this is what I think of first. And Nintendo's like, oh damn, we don't want you to think of that first. We'll just shut the whole thing down.
That's right.
And that might be like the preemptive response to something like QuakeCon. Now I think they'll try to figure it out. I think they'll set a dedicated team to running these things, but that part of that dedicated team's job is going to be background checks for everyone who goes on stage, everyone who has an official position with this event.
They need to.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the world. I think that's the world we've always lived in. I think that these companies are starting to realize, like, oh, and now we have to be vigilant about it. So
I look at the Harry Potter situation.
Oh God.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's what I mean. Like, did WB know about that? Do they care? Like, it's such a.
I think as well, when you have a passionate community that does stuff off their own volition, Xbox has one. I mean, if name dropping Clobril here, Clobril doesn't work for Microsoft, but he's well regarded in the community because he remains positive about gaming. He doesn't shitpost or do anything silly. He's really good with his art design and stuff like that. And he's garnered... He
harassed me today because I play inverted, so I don't feel very good about
him. The inverted wars continues. But that I think I saw Klob reach out and jokingly or say something to Aaron Greenberg, who quoted one of his tweets, and say, hey, effectively, you know where I am if you want to pay me money. And if I was Microsoft, and I'm being super honest here, if I look at anyone in the community that just does this stuff, unless you're making a living on YouTube via content creation or whatever, then why does Microsoft need to do it? You're already doing it for free for them. You're doing it out of passion. Why would they come and...
Yeah.
It happens, don't get me wrong. I know, I love forging Halo maps. I know several forgers who only experience in level design was forging in Halo, who now work
like that
at
dude from Sean Labs Forge.
Well, Sean forged maps, but he doesn't work for Microsoft, but he's made himself a YouTube community, right? But I know a couple of developers at 343 who used to forge, and that's all they did, and that's how they got a job.
Yeah.
That's the route, but that's through dedication and actually going and learning Unreal and Blueprint and da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
This is kind of different. I'm really into this world and I'm going to make content about it. Cool. I don't need to pay you for that. That's my opinion, but,
Yeah. Look,
go ahead.
Sorry. In a perfect world, Dave, yes, you are spot on. Like, get these guys to do your marketing and get them to present at a QuakeCon, like Jeff said, and whatever. My only hesitation is that it's not that perfect world, and there's too much stuff that's happened in the last 12 months around this kind of thing that's gone wrong. And Microsoft, out of Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft are the ones that have that magnifying glass right on them all the time. And partially it goes back to what we were talking about before. It's because they're out there on social media, and it's because they interact, and it's because of all that. Sony and Nintendo don't interact, so no one busts their balls about stuff much. They don't cop that much pressure because of that. Where Microsoft puts their neck on the chopping block, hoping the guillotine's not going to come down, but when it does, it comes down hard and it comes down fast.
Yeah.
So it's... Yeah, it's a tough balancing act, that one.
Yep. I think that was it for Twitter, wasn't it?
Yeah. Look, I mean, Nerd Propellant has asked a bunch of questions based around the Bethesda stuff. And I'd argue it's the last question.
There you go. Last question.
He's got a few. It's all just around all of that, you know. Wolfenstein 3, Xbox only, timed or day and date with PlayStation 5. We don't know.
Find out.
And again, I've heard both sides. I've heard exclusive. I've heard not exclusive.
Yep, same.
Gut feel. Wolfenstein exclusive. Starfield exclusive. Gut feel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Please no articles, like the article that came from Jeff's Discord.
Oh god, I was actually gonna ask about that. I had that on my list.
Oh god,
WCCF Tech and Alt-Char, just this guy
and that
stole screen grabs, took out the conversational parts so
Yes,
that you
I was
lose
about
the
to
context of the conversation, and posted it as a leak.
Yeah. It's not the screenshot that bothered me so much. It was the very selective editing. Like,
Yep.
I took a screenshot of that entire conversation and I've shown it to Jeff and I've shown it to a few people. When you see the whole thing, it completely changes the context of what I was saying. Completely changes it. And that gentleman left the Discord immediately after being busted.
Yep.
Straight
Remind me to
away.
make you remind me to add you as a role so you could get into the secret channels on there where we can actually post that stuff.
We know that. We know that skill.
Well, I didn't, but dude, I didn't even think. I like when you see the whole conversation, it was quite a casual. Oh yeah, this is what I think might happen, and blah 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, I saw someone link me to this article. I'm like, holy shit! Look what they did. Anyway.
Damn kids.
Yeah.
Yes, kids.
Clout.
What kind of games do you think will still go to PS5?
Yeah.
Again,
do you know what?
Feel?
I'm kind of bored of the conversation.
Gut feel, none. Outside, I think after Deathloop and Ghostwire, I don't think PS5 is going to see any more games.
Yeah.
Again, that's what I think.
I think they might see the occasional. They'll see updates to Elder Scrolls Online if they come. They'll see, like if there's a new region, they'll update
stuff.
that.
Elder Scrolls Online.
No,
yeah.
existing. I'm talking new stuff, and that includes Doom,
I still
Elder Scrolls
think
6 or 5, whatever.
If ZeniMax makes a new type of MMO at any point, they might make the decision.
If it's a free-to-play MMO. If it's free to play,
they might make the decision
maybe.
and say, well, you know what? For the benefit of a broader community, we'll stick it on there. It doesn't cost us anything. It's free to play. It's just money.
You know where I see a spanner in the works of this exclusivity thing, and I forgot to mention it earlier? The Super Nintendo Switch. That is where I see there might be... And Jeff, can you lie to me if you have to? Did you get Super Nintendo Switch from me?
No, I actually got it from someone else. It's been going around.
I said lie to me if you have to.
He wants to be the originator of that.
Yes. No, that was no. Listen, that person told me they heard it from you. So yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
There you go.
Okay, good.
That's made his day. If you want, Nick, I'll edit the podcast so that he just says that answer instead, and you can feel good about yourself.
Thank you. Yes, that's what I misspoke anyhow.
Naturally.
I love you, Jeff.
Okay. Well, I think that draws.
And then the next two, or the next one, we kind of spoke about how will Microsoft juggle Bethesda's E3 and Microsoft's E3. Think we get expanded mod support on Series X for Bethesda games?
Probably. They'll look to do it.
Yeah. That would be a very likely conclusion to what has happened now.
That's how you capitalize on the Bethesda fan base. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. And the PC community it helps them get involved too.
Yeah.
I reckon that's a no-brainer, that one. Yep. That's about it, really.
Hey.
That's pretty much everything.
That was a very lengthy community questions, which we kind of expected going in.
Yeah.
I still, we say this every podcast, but we're going to have to take steps. We're going to have to take steps to put a cap.
Well, we did today. I think what we did today was a good first step. We acknowledged the people that asked questions and said, look, they just asked a question about this.
We love to be inclusive.
And said we can't.
We need to involve everyone because we don't do a super chat thing.
I know, I can't help it. I feel bad.
I
want to ask all of them. I want to address
I just
them
make
all.
people pay me. Hey, super chats only.
I know.
And Patreons
and that's the funny
only.
thing. Like, we've talked about that and we're like, oh, we don't want to charge people for questions. But it's like, but everyone does that. Like, everyone. Randall and Jeremy do it.
It's first. So it's a good way to like. It's the people that want to engage the most. They want to pay. They want to support the show. It's a good way to like encourage that. But it's also just like there's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And a good way to prove that your question's worth it is if you want to pay to hear us answer it. Then it's a self-weeding out process.
That's a very good point.
Is this question actually good? Well, I'm willing to pay $5 for you to answer it. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, let's read it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I never thought about it that way, honestly. I never actually, I just, in my mind, it was always just, I feel bad charging people for questions.
Yeah.
That was always...
you can like answer every question for anyone who even pays $1. Like just like the lowest amount of money. It's just any barrier to entry to get in a question in. It's like, that just, it makes the questions better overall. And makes the show better.
Patreon does have a $1 tip jar now.
Yeah. Do you know what? People that watch the podcast, you can comment in the YouTube comments. We discussed doing an alternate, kind of taking the community questions aside from the ones for the Patreon out of the main podcast and doing like an actual live stream thing where we get together and we might have guests on and things like that. So it'd be kind of like the podcast, but more... Because I don't know about you guys. If I'm listening to a podcast, I hate hearing people stop and go, hey, subscribe and, hit thanks. And it interrupts the flow of actual conversation, which I think is... in my opinion, what most people like to listen to. If you're interested in something like that, let us know in the comments on YouTube or drop us a note on the forums, and we'll take it under advisement. But long story short, if you see us charge for it, blame Jeff Grubb. He's the instigator of our wealth.
I'll take it, man.
To be fair,
10%, Jeff,
we
10%.
do have a $1. We do have a $1 tier now. Like $1 isn't that egregious to say for a question.
No,
surely.
yeah. It's like it's paying to save your sanity a little bit. Like, yeah, absolutely. It's the way to go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if Jeffrey says that's what we should do, then that's what we'll probably do.
It's just economics, baby. It's just economics.
That's how it works. Yeah, how it works. Well, look, it's been a long one, Jeff, and I'm very conscious that you did your own podcast not 2 hours ago.
Oh,
so
no worries. I love you boys. I'm glad you guys had me on here.
No, seriously, man. Like, thanks heaps. Like, seriously.
Of course.
So
absolutely.
Without further ado,
I love you, Jeff.
Oh God, guys, get a room, seriously. Thank you ever so much for listening, for watching. If you love what we do, head over to our Patreon. It's only $1. You heard it here first. Jeff Grubb says it's okay. Well, maybe we'll put sponsored by Jeff Grubb. I don't know. We'll think of something.
Pay up, boys.
For a question.
Come on, hey.
But
the bill has come due.
It's been a pleasure. We'll definitely have you on again if you're willing. And
absolutely.
For those that haven't subscribed before, feel free to do so. It is appreciated. We are 14 away from our next sort of big milestone. I've been watching it over the last couple of days. Ooh. So thank you ever so much. And,
Jeff will get us there. Jeff,
do you want to plug? Sure. Do you want to plug VentureBeat and stuff while you're here? Do you want to drop a little plug?
Yeah, GamesBeat, GamesBeat.com, and then my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Jeffery Grubb. I started a new show, the Game Mess Show, where I talk about Jeffrey Grubb's summer game mess. I'm going to try to do regular updates there. Whenever the list gets updated, I'll try to explain what's happening, what each event, what the important events mean. I'm not going to talk about the future game show. I don't know what's happening there. But yeah, it's been a fun thing that I just started this past week and getting a lot of good feedback from it. But if anyone wants to go check it out, let me know what you think. I'd really appreciate that.
Cool. No worries. We'll do. So we'll stick some links in the description below. And from me and the rest of the guys, we'll see you next time.
Ciao for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.